Hello friends, this your friend Saiyan Nexus audio fanfic and we are back in new fanfic. What if Gine went to Earth with Goku the Saiyan mother who changed everything part 2. Legend of the Dragon Balls. Gine was working the garden when Kakarot came running past her. Alright, Mom, just finished chopping the wood, I'm gonna go get us some lunch. He called out as he ran towards the woods. Be sure to get fish this time. Gine yelled back. Kakarot waved in acknowledgement as he disappeared toward the river. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and got into stance. But Gine already knew. She kept pulling the freshly grown rhubarb out as she heard commotion behind her as Gohan attacked Kakarot, and paid no mind to it. It was part of Kakarot's training and had become a little game between them to see who could keep up their guard the best. After a slight scuffle, they stopped. Not bad, my boy, said Gohan as he emerged from the woods as well. Ha, nice try yourself, Grandpa. Kakarot countered slyly. Well, I'll get you next time. No matter how slight or relaxed you may be, always keep your guard up. Gohan appraised. If there'll be a next time. Kakarot quipped before running off into the woods. See you later, gotta get some fish. Gohan watched where Kakarot took off into the thick brush of the trees, and chuckled. The boy was indeed improving his defensive skills, and now he wasn't able to surprise him out of the woods like he used to. Kakarot was a fast learner. He picked up the large basket of potatoes he hid while planning to jump his adopted grandson and headed towards the house. Gine sighed in contentment as she took a break from pulling the rhubarb. She leaned back off her knees and sat on the grass, placing her hands behind her so she could look up into the blue sky. She closed her eyes and took a deep relaxing breath, enjoying the scent of a pleasantly warm spring day. It was difficult for her to believe that 11 years had already passed since she and her son had arrived on Earth. The ethereal-like peace of mountain life had made time slip by so fast for Gine, enjoying every beautiful season and losing herself in the upkeep of their home while she watched Kakarot grow. She herself was pushing 36 Earth years now, but Gine looked barely a day older than when she landed here. Only her eyes showed any progression of her age, for they held the looks of a mature woman who had long since made peace with distant pains but weary from the still lingering shadow of her old life, and garnered wisdom from years of living off the land. She sighed again after her short break and was about to continue harvesting when Gohan came up behind her. What's with all the sighing? He teased. Oh, nothing, Gine said fondly. Just enjoying this gorgeously fine day. Gohan's face crinkled into a wide smile. A gorgeous day it is, indeed. He then looked curious again. Though I sense there's more beyond that, since I noticed that you do this kind of thing whenever Kakarot goes off hunting or fishing. He always had a way of knowing things. Gine thought. She sighed yet again, almost in acknowledgement to Gohan's observations. Well, in a way, I'm glad to have some alone time from him. Don't get me wrong, he's the greatest thing to have ever happened to me aside from making a life here, and I love having him here. But he's grown up so much that he's reached a point where he's trying on a mother's nerves, I guess. I see, Gohan said. He's been here his whole life and you're starting to grow a little weary of his company. That was putting it bluntly, but Gine figured that her straightforwardness had rubbed off on Gohan over the years. Basically, she said, leaning back and sitting on the ground again, facing Gohan. He's a very fine young man, but you know how energetic he can be. That is very true, Gohan acknowledged. He set the basket down and sat down with her too. He's getting very restless, I'd say. He ought to get out more often to burn off some of that energy of his. That may very well be. Back on Vegeta, he'd be out on his own by now, Gine said. She pulled off her gardening gloves to sit in the grass more comfortably. But didn't you say he's years away from becoming an adult? Gohan asked. Technically, yes, she elaborated. Though he is not yet at an age to find a mate, he's old enough to be surviving on his own. Saiyans usually part from their families to become independent before they reach puberty. HN. Gohan nodded. As humans usually rear children until they reach the age they seek mates. But I guess the need for self-reliance is stronger in Saiyans. That's very true. Gine agreed, for it tied very closely for their desire for strength. Then I'll see if I can persuade Kakarot to get out more often, perhaps he can join me during another one of my trips to the village. Gohan offered. It sounds like a good idea. Gine said, but she knew even then that it wouldn't be enough. He'd been there once or twice before. He needed to venture out of his comfort zone to truly grow someday, but she didn't know exactly how. This was something they've hardly discussed before though, as it almost bordered on the silent agreement that neither of them should bring up one of them leaving. Gohan had let them integrate into his life, but he had every right to say they should leave. Yet he didn't, and she didn't think he would. But who was she to judge what he thinks? Gohan sensed her hesitation, almost as if he knew what she was thinking. Then Gine spoke before they could think further about that untouchable topic. And I've already decided that I won't force Kakarot away if he doesn't want to. But by the time he reaches his adult growth spurt, I'll make him leave whether he wants to or not. She said, then added, for his sake, and for the sake of our sanities. Gohan chuckled in agreement. I suppose so. Gine sat there in silence. She meant what she said. Knowing Saiyan instincts, by the time they become teenagers to young adults and if they have been cooped up for too long, Kakarot will get wildly more antsy, maybe even violent. Saiyans by then will also need to seek out a mate, or else they'll become hostile. So, she resolved to kick him out before puberty would take full effect of her son. Her thoughts drifted back to the agreement, realizing what she just said almost echoed the idea of Gohan forcing them to leave after a certain time. She momentarily worried if she violated the agreement or if it was just her nerves. The wind shifted. Then, Gine froze. Gohan noticed her change in stature and alertness. She stood up, her hypertuned senses picking up a strange sound coming from the direction of the road. Someone's coming, Gine said. Oh. Gohan tensed too. No one had ever willingly come this far out here before. Whoever it was, they must be either really lost, or... Gine suddenly took off toward the source of the approaching sound. Their conversation already forgotten. As she walked faster and faster towards the road, she heard a shriek. Then it sounded like Kakarot was shouting. Gine's heart instantly doubled its pace in worry as she used her incredible speed to get to the commotion. After rounding the hut, she saw the source of the clamor. Kakarot was staring down a type of vehicle that had been flipped on its side. Gine remembered that it was called a car from what Gohan had told her about the types of transportation on this planet. That was for trying to sneak up on me and steal my fish. Kakarot yelled. A giant blue tuna lay on the ground nearby, at least he caught what he was told. Come on out and fight me, you monster. He yelled at the car, his power pull out and he posed ready for a fight. It occurred to Gine that her son had never seen a car before. Before she could call out to him, a wild-eyed human girl popped out from the side of the vehicle. She had blue hair and looked not much older than Kakarot. A human girl. Kakarot said in confusion. He relaxed his stance and looked at her in confusion. Get away from me. The girl suddenly yelled, pulling out a handgun and fired at Kakarot. He recoiled as the projectile struck his head. Kakarot! Gine screamed. Her maternal instincts in full swing, she rushed toward her son. When she reached him, she instinctively shielded him from the girl in case she fired at him more but saw that he was fine. Ow! Holy cow! What was that? He groaned, rubbing his head from where the ballistic projectile struck him. Her worry was quickly replaced with anger as she turned towards the girl in the car. Why did you shoot my son? Gine demanded. The girl didn't respond, her eyes were the size of dinner plates. Gine figured she was in shock by how a woman could appear out of nowhere. And this made Gine angrier, and the last thing anyone should do was make an already pissed off mother defending her child even more pissed. Faster than the girl could see, Gine punched through the side of the car with one hand like it was made of paper mache and snatched up the girl by the front of the pink dress she was wearing. The girl yelped in alarm, then tried to bring the gun to Gine's face, but she swiped it out of the girl's hand with her free hand, crushing it in her grasp without noticing it. Why did you shoot him? Gine yelled in her face. The poor girl was frozen in terror, utterly speechless as her mouth was agape at seeing her handgun taken and crushed. Gine almost felt sorry for her, and feeling slightly bad for causing such duress to her, but she did attack them first. Having enough of this girl trembling and not getting any answers, Gine moved her free arm as if she was going to strike her, hoping to get her to react. The girl then threw her hands up. Wait, please. I am sorry. Please don't hurt me. I didn't mean you any harm. Gine stopped, glad her little bluff worked. She let go of the blue-haired girl, who stood there with her hands up in surrender. Well, if you don't mean any harm, then why did you shoot my son? She repeated her question. Speaking of which, Kakarot was on his feet again, by her side with his power pole out and ready. Yeah, what was all that for? Kakarot demanded. The girl went even more bug-eyed. You should be dead, kid. She said bewildered. What in the blazes is going on out here? Gohan yelled as he rounded the corner of the hut. Oh, he said with some curious interest when he spotted the girl. Well, he's not. So why did you attack him? Gine repeated impatiently to the girl. The girl looked between her and Kakarot, still shaking the bewilderment from seeing the kid still standing from being shot in the head. Coming to her senses, she said, it was an accident. He flipped over my car. I thought he was going to attack me. You hit me with that thing. Kakarot accused, pointing towards her flipped car. You came out of nowhere. The girl yelled back defensively. Kakarot yelled, I thought you were trying to steal my. Enough. Gine shouted to both of them, trying to quell the argument. When they both quieted down, she turned to Kakarot. Kakarot, say you're sorry for flipping this girl's car over and frightening her. She told her son. Kakarot looked at her in confusion, and she looked back at him sternly. Knowing not to question his mother, he bowed towards the girl. I'm sorry, he said, not really meaning it. Then Gine turned to the girl, and you, apologize for attacking my son. The girl looked indignant, but by this point knew better than to go against someone who looked like she could literally break her. I'm sorry too, she said placatingly. Gine softened a bit. She still didn't trust her, but also realized that she was just a weak human girl and is of no threat to them. And I am sorry too. Kakarot here is a very nice young man, but forgets his manners sometimes. The girl looked at her incredulously, then back at Kakarot. Yeah, sure. No problem. Now with that out of the way, she decided to get further into what all this was about. Gine turned to the girl. Now then, why don't you tell me who you are and why you are here? She ordered. The girl straightened, feeling slightly better with her but still apprehensive. Well, my name is Bulma. Gine then extended her hand. My name is Gine. She introduced herself. Bulma reluctantly shook her hand. Then Gine pointed towards Kakarot. And my son, Kakarot, you know already. She said. Kakarot waved sheepishly. Yeah, no kidding. Bulma humorlessly joked. Then Gine asks the next obvious question. So, why is someone like you way out here, Bulma? Bulma answered without skipping a beat. I'm actually here looking for the Dragon Balls. The what? Gine asked. Bulma dropped her backpack and reached in. These, she said, pulling out two small orange orbs. Gine and Kakarot looked at them, then gasped in amazement. Hey, we have one just like those. Kakarot said. Really? Bulma asked excitedly. Yeah, we do. Gine answered, feeling curious. She never knew more of these orbs existed, let alone what they were called. Come to think of it, neither did Gohan when she asked him once what it was. But he said he didn't know and guessed it was some trinket someone dropped. He found it laying in the middle of the forest one day long ago and took it home with him. Bulma seemed to sense that Kakarot and Gine didn't know the importance of these things and they had it. Can I see it? She asked them, sounding more mischievous this time. Gine was hesitant but Kakarot spoke up for her. Sure. He said warmly, already forgetting the tiff from earlier. It's up at our place. He pointed toward the hut and Gohan. That's my grandpa, by the way. Kakarot added. Oh, cool. Hello. Bulma waved at the old man, and he waved back smiling warmly. Why don't you come on in? We were gonna have lunch anyways, so you can tell us about these Dragon Balls. Kakarot offered. Bulma looked like she couldn't believe her luck. Sure. Lunch sounds good, she said enthusiastically. But Kakarot, Gine started, but he had already grabbed the big fish he caught, and they were all heading towards the hut. Gine sighed in frustration. She really had to pound in his manners better if was inviting a stranger into their home without their permission. Not to mention someone they didn't fully trust. Gine followed a bit further behind as they headed up towards the hut. She couldn't tell but felt something gnawing on her, wondering if it was still her nerves or something else about this girl. She cleaned and cooked the giant fish Kakarot caught while Bulma chatted away with Gohan and Kakarot. She was feeling rather unsettled, since this was the first time they've ever had a visitor in their home. Gine had seen other humans before during the trips to the village but had always kept as low a profile as she could, for she didn't want attention drawn to her. Too used to the hermit life and not wanting people to know they were not from this world. That and this Bulma gave off an air of having an ulterior motive for being here, since no one came this far out into the wilderness on purpose besides them. So Gine kept constantly glancing over her shoulder towards Bulma as she cooked. When lunch was ready, Gine set the fish plates down on the table just as she was catching what Bulma was saying. Kakarot busied himself between eating the fish and listening to Bulma's story. And when you gather all 7 of them, a magical dragon is supposed to appear and grant you one wish. Is that so? Gohan asked, fascinated by the tale while Kakarot was far more enthralled. The other 2 Dragon Balls she had were on the table to show to Gohan. Yep, Bulma said with absolute certainty. And what will you wish for if the dragon did appear? Gohan asked, and Bulma smiled. A lifetime supply of strawberries. She beamed. The 3 of them just stared. Oh wow. You must really like strawberries, I guess. Gohan said nonplussed. Nothing better. Bulma said, they are my favorite food. It's always so difficult to get fresh strawberries in the city, they are all aged and sour without having to travel to the farmlands and pay so much for them. And there is just nothing better than the sweet taste of a freshly plucked homegrown strawberry. Well, I'll have to agree with you on that. Gohan chuckled before sipping his tea. Gine didn't believe her. There was no way that was true, even if there was such thing as a wish-granting dragon. Why would someone waste such a power on growing something so simple? But Bulma didn't seem to be lying. So, what could it be? Gohan looked over at Gine and noticed her apprehension, so he smiled reassuringly. Gine wanted to protest but relented, for she knew that if Gohan didn't feel concerned or believed something he was told, then so could she. But still. And if we give you our Dragon Ball, what would be our cut? A shipment of strawberries every year? Gohan asked. Naturally. Bulma chuckled back. Gine rolled her eyes, for the wish was not a lie, but just flippant. Bulma didn't really believe in the legend. She was just a spoiled city girl out looking for a little fun, so her coming here was just basically a scavenger hunt for jewels. She was now slightly embarrassed by being so suspicious of this girl that they practically manhandled for bumping into Kakarot. She was no threat at all. So, she felt herself ease up a bit. Very well. Then, I guess you could have it. Gohan said. He got up and picked up their Dragon Ball from its velvet resting place on the shelf. I see no reason why you can't, as there seems to be more like these. He said as Bulma took it into her hands gleefully. I have one condition though. Gohan said. And what would that be? Bulma looked at him suspiciously, like she wasn't going to agree with just about anything for the 4-star ball. If the legend turns out to be true and the dragon does appear to grant you a wish, just come back so you can tell me about it. You got a deal, Mr. Gohan. Bulma said excitedly as she and Gohan shook on it. Gine didn't say anything. She didn't believe in the legend Bulma was telling. This was just some city girl out on what she thinks is an adventure. Judging from the way she was dressed, she seemed poorly prepared to find those, whatever they were called, here in the mountains. And if she didn't have any other kind of weapons beside the gun Gine crushed, Bulma would likely get killed by a cougar or bear by nightfall if she went off on her own. She was contemplating giving this little lady some advice when she noticed how Kakarot was listening very closely to every word Bulma said. Then, an idea popped into her head. Why don't you take Kakarot with you? Gine said without realizing it. They all looked at her, surprised at her proposal. He knows the woods and the mountains better than anybody. He'll help you find the, what were they called again? She asked. Dragon Balls. Bulma answered. Right, Dragon Balls. He can help you find them in no time if they are around here. Bulma looked to Kakarot then back at Gine. Well maybe, but I don't think they'll all be out here. The two I found were several hundred miles apart, including the one you have. Gine thought this new information over, but regardless of if she needed him or not, she wanted to stick to her idea that her gut was telling her to do. Either way, you should take him with you. No offense, but you don't seem well prepared for an adventure. Are you kidding me? Bulma yelled indignantly. I have a gun and capsules for your information. And yet Kakarot was able to disarm you. Gine pointed out. This girl had a very poor understanding of how dangerous the wilderness was. But he could be your bodyguard in case you ran into trouble. And besides, he needs to go out there and see a bit of the world. Kakarot looked at his mom, confused. I do. Bulma looked at his mom. He hasn't been out much. No, he's been here all his life. I do think a little adventure would do him nicely. Gine said. Bulma looked to Kakarot seeking to know if it was true. Is that true? You've never been anywhere. Yep. Lived here my whole life. Kakarot answered. Bulma looked to Gine and back at Kakarot. Sure. Why not? I could use a little extra protection and some company. And I'd be happy to show him the sights. The sights? Kakarot asked, his curiosity piqued. Yep. There are all kinds of cool things to see in the world. Get to see the big cities, cross the deserts, and even see the ocean. Bulma said. Really? Kakarot said, astonishment in his voice. That's right. Gohan added. You can go see all the faraway places you read about in your books and learn all about what life outside the mountains is like. You might even learn something new about fighting out there too. Kakarot's eyes lit up with a wonderment that Gine had never seen from him before. Oh wow, he exclaimed and turned to his mom. Can I really go with Bulma, Mom? Please. Gine sighed in embarrassment and relief. I just told her to take you with her, sweetie. Of course you can go. All right. Kakarot jumped in joy, unable to contain his excitement. Then we have no time to lose. Grab your stuff and let's get going. Bulma declared. Kakarot hastily finished his lunch and grabbed his power pole. Bulma opened a capsule on the ground outside that made a motorcycle pop into existence. Kakarot was ready to leave but stopped. How long will I be gone? He asked them in general. Bulma thought for a moment and said, not sure, however long it takes to find the Dragon Balls I guess. Kakarot looked to his mom for her input. I'm fine with that, just remember to not be gone for too long. Gine said. Okay. He said and ran up to his mother and gave her and Grandpa Gohan a hug. I'll be back soon, he yelled as he jumped on the motorcycle behind Bulma, and rode off. He waved back at them. Bye, they all said to each other. Gine watched them go until they were out of view. Finally, some alone time for once, she thought. But she couldn't help but have mixed feelings about this. Gine was beyond excited that her son can have an opportunity to see some more of the world, but this was the first time he had ever ventured out on his own without her guidance. He needed this. But he'll be fine, Gohan said, breaking her train of thought. Almost as if he knew what she was thinking. Yeah, I'm sure he will, she said uncertainly. An empty nest was easier on the child than the mother. Gine was learning that later in the evening as she paced back and forth in the hut restlessly. What if he gets hurt? She said, biting her knuckles. Her mind was in a whirlwind of worry. She had been thinking about nothing but what could happen to Kakarot out there all by himself. As I said, he'll be fine. He's a strong lad, you're just worrying too much, Gohan said placatingly. He seemed more concerned about Gine giving herself a panic attack than Kakarot's safety. Or what if he hurts someone? Like, what if he looks at the moon by accident? She lets out the worst of her worries. I don't think that would happen. We've made sure of that, and he's never transformed since you came here. Gohan reminded her. But what if he forgets himself? Gine said, not listening. He forgets things sometimes, and what if he forgets it's a full moon out and he does hurt someone? So what if he does? Gohan said abruptly. Gine stopped pacing and stared at him, her mouth agape. That got her attention finally. His face softened. You said so yourself that Kakarot needs to do things on his own, right? Well, that includes his responsibility to not hurt others. You can't nurture him forever. This is something that he needs to do. You've pounded that lesson into him his whole life and he's turned out rather well. So, I think it's reasonable enough to assume he will be okay. Gohan assured her. Gine stood there silently, trying to think of a rebuke to prove Gohan wrong, that he should be as worried as she was. But she couldn't. I guess, you're right, she said reluctantly, but it didn't do much to assuage her fears. Gohan walked over to her and gently placed his hands on her arms. I understand your fears, Gine. No amount of reassurances can make a parent stop worrying about their child, but in order to fly, the mother bird needs to trust her chicks that they are ready. This is as much of a test of growth for you as it is for Kakarot. You just need to trust him. Gine knew he was right, like always. She needed to trust her son to do the right thing. She made it her life's purpose to raise him properly, to be a good man of his own someday rather than just another battle-crazy Saiyan. And to do that would mean to do things the way humans did, all of this something no Saiyan mother has ever tried before. And he can't put all what she taught him to use if he remained cooped up here. Plus, she did say so herself that she wanted him to leave eventually. Well, she got what she wanted in the form of Bulma coming along. Though now she was wondering if she had been too hasty in wanting that. But as Gohan would say, the beauty of life was in the unexpected. Gine let out a shaky breath she didn't realize she was holding. Okay. Gohan gave her a reassuring hug. Don't worry, my dear. He'll be fine. It won't do you much good to stress yourself out. She snorted sardonically. Well, I am his mother. It's my job to worry about him. Hehehe. Well, that's true, I'll admit. Gohan chuckled. Weeks later, Gine was outside the hut hanging up some laundry to dry, humming to herself. As she finished smoothing out the creases on some sheets, she stopped humming. There was another sound. Another kind of humming she could hear, a strange put-put noise from the sky. Gine looked high up to see a yellow streak heading straight towards her. She tensed, not sure at what she was seeing should make her feel threatened. The yellow streak arced sideways. It was a puffy yellow cloud leaving a contrail in its wake, humming along like it was a motorized contraption. On the cloud was a dot, and as the cloud got closer, that dot grew to resemble that of a little boy on it. Hey mom, the boy called out from the cloud. She immediately knew. Kakarot. Gine cried out with joy. Her son leapt from the cloud as it flew over them. She held out her arms to catch him and he effortlessly landed in them. I missed you, Mom. Kakarot laughed and squealed in delight in her embrace. Gine hugged him tightly as tears of joy threatened to fall. I missed you too, sweetheart. She said, her voice slightly cracking. All the worry she had suppressed during his time away suddenly vanished, replaced with sheer jubilation now that he had returned alive and well. Grandpa, Kakarot called out as Gohan came running toward them. Dear boy, you're back, he said joyously. The three of them ended up in a large embrace as Gohan and Gine took in how much they missed him. So, how was your journey? Gohan asked, as he released his embrace of Kakarot while Gine still kept a hand on his shoulder as if afraid of letting go of him. It was amazing, Grandpa. We got to hunt for the Dragon Balls, fight some rabbit mobsters, put out a fire. As Kakarot recounted his sojourn rapid fire, his stomach growled angrily. Gine laughed, knowing how important that sound was. Let's have some lunch first, then you can tell us all about it. Gine offered brightly. Yeah, Kakarot didn't need to be told twice. After Gine cooked up a quick lunch, Kakarot recounted the adventure he had in a jumble of names and places that Gine couldn't follow fast enough. But a couple names stood out. Ah, you met Ox King? Gohan asked Kakarot. I sure did. Is it true that you and he trained together under Master Roshi? That we did. That was decades ago though. Gohan said wistfully. So how is he doing nowadays? Kakarot paused to catch his breath from eating then spoke. He used to be a warlord but stopped when Master Roshi told him to. He now had a daughter and an entire mountain kingdom where he kept all his treasure. It caught fire and we tried to put it out, but Roshi saved their castle from the fire by doing a special attack that Roshi called the Kamehameha wave. The Kameha? What? Gine asks. The Kamehameha wave. Kakarot clarified. It's a sort of technique where you could channel your energy into a beam that can obliterate any obstacle you want it to. He put out the fire but destroyed the castle, but it worked. It was really cool, and even I got to try it after watching him do it the first time. You tried it? Gohan asked amazed. Yep, Kakarot said. Gine was intrigued by how surprised Gohan was when Kakarot mentioned that. You mean, you really successfully performed the Kamehameha? Gohan asked again, as if in doubt. Yeah, Kakarot said simply. Though mine are nowhere near as strong as Master Roshi's, but I think I can be as strong as him someday if I practice more. Gohan looked flabbergasted, like what he just heard was almost too good to be true, but Kakarot was not one to tell a lie. It took my master 50 years to master the Kamehameha wave. And you're saying you learned it on your first try? I can show you later if you like. Kakarot offered, as if taking it up as a challenge. Gohan smiled and said genuinely, now that, dear boy, I would definitely love to see. Cool. Finally, I get to teach you guys something for once. He said excitedly. This made Gohan chuckle and shake his head in happy amazement. Gine wondered what it was about this technique that had got his attention the way it did. But she hoped she could learn what this was too if it made Gohan jittery. And felt a swell of pride for her boy for mastering something so quickly from what Gohan had told her was the greatest martial arts master on the planet. And now he was going to teach them how he did it. Kakarot was truly full of surprises. She then decided to ask, Kakarot, what was that strange thing you were riding on the way here? It was the flying Nimbus. He answered quickly. It's a magic cloud that can take you anywhere you want to go as long as you were of pure heart. Pure of heart? Huh? Gine said. Yep. So far only I and the Ox King's daughter, Chi-Chi, could ride it. Everyone couldn't sit in it and just fell through it. Gine was fascinated by this, and a part of her felt suddenly warm and happy at the notion that Kakarot was such an innocent enough soul to be considered pure. She couldn't agree more that her boy was really something special. Maybe she did a good enough job raising him after all. Oh, and by the way, Mom, the Ox King is single. Kakarot said nonchalantly. At first, she didn't know what he meant, but when it sunk in, Gine's cheeks turned into several shades of red. Gohan was on the verge of laughing. Gine fidgeted with her tea, trying to ignore the uncomfortable silence from Kakarot, as if he was waiting for her to respond. That's good to know, she said tightly and refused to say anything more about it. Well, almost did a good job at raising him, she thought. Gohan couldn't stop grinning but decided to bail Gine out and change the subject. Where did you get the Nimbus from? Asked Gohan. It was a gift from Master Roshi. Kakarot said. He's still keeping it real, Gohan beamed in nostalgia. He's incredibly strong and brilliant. And he said I can train with him if I want to. Kakarot beamed. Gohan looked very pleased. That's very great news, Kakarot. Roshi is very selective of the students he would take in, so you must have made quite a first impression on him. Oh yeah, we did alright. Kakarot answered without explaining. Gine wondered what more there was to how that happened. Before she could ask, Gohan asked, was the legend true? Said Kakarot. Did a magic dragon appear after you gathered the Dragon Balls? Gohan clarified. Oh, yes, it did. Kakarot replied. It granted a wish after it was summoned. Gine was surprised, as was Gohan. It was fantastical tale when they heard it, and neither of them fully believed it. But for all of Kakarot's faults, he was honest to a fault. And if he said it happened. Apparently, Bulma wasn't lying after all. Amazing. Well, what did you wish for, dear boy? Gohan asked in astonishment. Panties. Kakarot answered simply. Gine almost choked on her tea, and Gohan looked in horror. What? Was all he could say. Oolong, the shapeshifting talking pig I told you about earlier, he wished for some panties. Kakarot clarified. It didn't reduce the shock though. Gohan shook his head. Oh dear, sounds like something Master Roshi would do. Gine looked horrified too, not wanting to dare ask what else Roshi would do. Was he supposed to be a martial arts master or some kind of pervert? Or even both? And Kakarot was going to train with him. But another thought entered her mind. The Dragon Balls really did grant wishes. It repeated again. That idea she couldn't get out of her mind. It saved the world though. Kakarot replied, breaking Gine's train of thought. She and Gohan looked at him questioningly. We weren't the only ones looking for the Dragon Balls. There was this little evil guy named Pilaf who wanted to gather the Dragon Balls and wish himself to be the emperor of the world. Oolong used the wish before he could, so he saved the world. Kakarot said. Gine and Gohan were dumbstruck. This was a really strange tale from Kakarot. But if a magic wish-granting dragon was real, then who knew what else was possible? But what was even more amazing was that Kakarot had somehow helped save the world. And if what her son said was true, then Gine was beyond glad that Kakarot ventured out into the world when he did, or else they'd all be slaves to some distant tyrant, something that hit a little too close to home for her. Gohan was right. The beauty of life truly was in the unexpected. Another question came to her mind. But what happened to the Dragon Balls? What's stopping this Pilaf from wishing again to rule the world? She asked. Kakarot didn't waste a breath. After Oolong made his wish, the Dragon Balls flew up into the sky and scattered away on their own. Bulma said that they scatter randomly across the whole planet, and they turn to stone for a whole year before they can be found again. The details just got weirder, but at least that answered her question. So, you'll search for them all over again? Gohan asked. Kakarot looked to him. Yep, we'll go look for them again someday and make a better wish next time. Strange indeed. Well, strange but it worked. In either case, I'm glad you helped save the world, dear. Gine said. She didn't expect to say those words over this particular lunch or contemplate that the world was in such danger while she was going about her day. But she was glad, if not overjoyed nonetheless, that her little boy, a Saiyan outcast from where he came from, had saved an entire planet from subjugation. It definitely put to rest any misgivings about her upbringing of him, manners and social skills aside. I'm glad too, Kakarot said, as he continued to munch on his food. As Gine watched, she noticed something she had missed before, then jumped to his side in horror. Where's your tail? Gine demanded. She flipped Kakarot over, surprising him. She inspected her son's lower back and sure enough, there was a scabbed over stub where his tail ought to have been. Well, Kakarot said hesitantly, it was cut off. What? Why? Gine demanded. She looked intensely at Kakarot, waiting for his answer. He looked at his feet, ashamed. We were held prisoner by Pilaf in his castle. There was no other way to escape. So, he paused, trying to get the word out under the accusing stare of his mother. So, I had to look at the full moon. He admitted. Gine took in a sharp breath, she was terrified something like this would happen. But Kakarot continued. I went to Zaru so I could get strong enough to help us escape. I did break us out, but I got too out of control, they said. So, they cut my tail off before I could hurt anyone. Gine sat there in silence, feeling a surge of horror that her son was kept imprisoned, and enraged at this, Pilaf. If she ever set eyes on whoever he was, she would not hesitate to vaporize him on the spot for harming her son. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you said I should never ever look at the moon. But there was no other way out of there. And my friends were in trouble. I had to. Kakarot finished, his voice choking and on the verge of tears. Realizing the truth, Gine hugged her son tightly. It's okay, sweetheart. She shushed him before he could start crying. I'm not mad. In fact, I'm actually very proud of you. Gine said, surprising Kakarot. You saved your friends, and no one was hurt. That's all that matters. Gine said to him. She did genuinely feel happy that her son's first transformation was out of a noble purpose and helped save the world. Sure, he lost his tail, but until it grew back, he wouldn't have to worry about looking at the moon for a while. Kakarot hugged her back. Thanks, Mom. He said gratefully. They parted from their embrace and Kakarot dried up his tears. So when will you head to Master Roshi? She asked, changing the subject. I'm thinking I'll leave tomorrow, unless you want me to stay. He offered. For an instant, Gine thought of telling him just that his brief stint out into the world was enough. After all, he saved the world, which was something almost no one else could ever say in 1,000 lifetimes, and lost his tail, so it should be plenty of experience for him. But Gine found that she couldn't do that. As much as she missed him and despite her apprehensions of the world, she wanted to not hinder his growth as a person. No, you can go train with him. Gine said at last. Yay. Thank you, Mom. Kakarot leapt into her embrace again. But she wasn't gonna let him go that easily. But promise me you come back right afterwards, alright? She demanded. I will, I promise. Kakarot assured her. They finished dinner and Kakarot helped them out with their chores for the night, before leaving in the morning to go train with Master Roshi. In the meantime, he told her more of his adventures, so she got a better idea of what he said earlier. She was really fascinated by it all. By how he made new friends and saw new places and grasped the state of human affairs enough to try and fight against forces of evil from armies to demons to mobsters. It almost made her envy him to go out and see it herself someday. Kakarot was drifting off before long, so she helped him to bed, carrying to the upper floor of the hut that was the room she shared with her son, and tucked him into his cot. She watched Kakarot as he snored away. She hadn't felt so calm since she first got settled in on Earth, so happy that her boy was home, even if it was just for one night. Gohan went off to bed soon afterwards, wishing her good night as he tidied up downstairs. But Gine didn't go to sleep thought. Instead, she lay in her bed across from Kakarot's and stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. There was a part of Kakarot's story that she couldn't stop thinking about. The Dragon Balls did grant wishes. She found it really hard to believe such a thing could exist, but her son never lied to her. Or at least, not lie very well. But she trusted his judgment enough that the wish granting was legitimate. And it made her wonder, could this dragon grant any kind of wish or were there limits? Perhaps, say, wish for eternal life. Go back in time. Or, maybe even bring people back from the dead. Kakarot fell asleep before she could ask him about what the Dragon Balls could do, but she could always ask him later. But a part of her didn't want to. The part of her that had long since grieved for the other two Saiyans most important in her life. The pain of that loss never went away, but it had lessened to an aching memory during her time on Earth. It was a pain that Gine learned she had the strength to live with. But now with this newfound possibility of bringing them back to life, something she never would have dreamed of, Gine was afraid that if those questions were not answered as she hoped, then that old wound would be ripped open anew. Later that night, Gine wept quietly in her bed. She cried like she did after they first arrived on Earth, but now it was not from grief but from fear. Fear of feeling the pain of loss all over again and losing whatever will she somehow gathered to keep going. So, she decided against asking about what those Dragon Balls can really do. She hoped that, if Kakarot ever asked her to help him find them, she would have the courage to say no. But I reminded Krillin that he didn't have a nose. Then all of a sudden, it's like he was never harmed by Bacterian. Kakarot exclaimed. Both his mother and grandfather then burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Well, that's convenient, Gine quipped. They were all seated at the dining table waiting for the stove to warm up so she could cook dinner. Kakarot had just returned an hour ago from his latest adventure. This time he was gone for almost half a year, training with Gohan's old martial arts master, Roshi, and competing in some sort of tournament, as he was recounting to them now. Kakarot was so excited to tell them everything. His traveling had done him good in ways Gine never expected. He had become more independent ever since he first went off with Bulma, and had grown an insatiable curiosity in everything he saw and a thirst to see everything Earth had to offer, essentially making the world his to explore. It made Gine so proud that he had become quite an adventurer, and she couldn't be any happier to hear his exploits. The peace and quiet of his absence was certainly just as great too, but she did miss him so much sometimes. Then what happened? Grandpa Gohan asked. He knocked him down and gave him a taste of his own medicine by farting in his face. Kakarot replied. Gine and Gohan didn't laugh at that. He didn't have to tell them that gross little detail, but they supposed it worked for teaching that filthy slob a lesson. So, he won that match. Gohan said, moving the conversation along. Yep, he won that and made it as far as the semifinals. Who did he lose to? Some really good fighter named Jackie Chun. Kakarot said. Ah, so you meet good old Chun. Gohan said, sounding oddly nostalgic. Yeah, I did. You know him? Kakarot asked. Oh, we've met before in previous tournaments. Gine noticed a touch of slyness in Gohan's voice, as if he knew something they didn't. Did you fight him in the finals? She asked. Kakarot turned to her. We did. We went all out too, so I had to use every trick and technique Master Roshi ever taught me just to not get thrown out or beaten down. I bet you had to. He is one of the best fighters out there. He has a way of putting you to the test, said Gohan knowingly. To Gine it almost sounded like Gohan knew there was something about Mr. Chun that correlated with Roshi. And somehow should be kept secret. She'll ask him later. Yes, he did. He was such a good fighter that I almost wanted to look up at the moon. Gine turned toward him in alarm. You weren't actually going to, were you? Kakarot shrunk when he realized he shouldn't have said that. No. I was tempted to since it would have been the only sure way to win, but I know you said I never should. Plus, there were people everywhere, so I didn't. Gine looked him in the eye, as if searching that he was telling the truth. He was. That's very good, I'm glad you didn't. She said finally and sipped her tea. Gine really was glad he considered all this but made a mental note to talk to him about never even thinking about resorting to such a reckless tactic to win something trivial like a competition. Also, it would have felt like cheating. I wanted to win the tournament in a fair fight. Kakarot added. Now that is the philosophy of an honorable warrior. Gohan remarked. Gine didn't entirely agree, for the Saiyan definition of honor was far more different than from what humans thought it was. Then again, it just meant winning a fight. If it was for the sake of fighting, then yes, all for a good sport. But if your life depended on winning. Another thought entered her mind, overtaking her last one. Hang on, how did you not look at the full moon? You had your shades on. Gine asked. Yeah, Kakarot answered, then perked up when he remembered. Oh, and my tail grew back. He uncoiled his tail from his new orange GI and showed it to her. Excellent, she said genuinely, then got back to her original question. So, you wore your shades on during the fight? I did, he answered. So, how did you keep them on while getting punched in the face? Kakarot thought this over. Well, Jackie Chun did accidentally knock off my glasses and I almost transformed. Gine didn't realize she was holding her breath, almost afraid to hear what happened next. But I looked away as you always told me to do. Then, Chun gave them back to me so we could continue fighting. He also didn't try to hit me in the face afterwards. He was as courteous as he was strong. He certainly does sound like it. Gine said, looking over to Gohan, who smiled back at her. It seemed to click in place. Roshi was made aware of Kakarot's ability to transformations. Could he be Chun? But wouldn't Kakarot recognize it's him? So many questions went through her head. And after a final struggle, we were both down. I managed to get up before he did, but then I passed out. Kakarot said. Chun got up and stayed up, so he won the title of championship. Kakarot said with some regret. You were that close, huh? Gohan asked. Yeah, Kakarot said as if looking out into the distance. It was a very fun match, and I was that close to winning, he said, holding his thumb and finger a hair's breadth apart to emphasize. Well, you did manage to get up before he did once, and that's all that matters. It's something you should be very proud of, Kakarot. Gohan said. Kakarot looked into his tea and smiled. Yeah, I am. And Master Roshi said as much also. He looked up at them. I'll beat him for real next time, though. Since I hope I can earn the championship someday. You will, I have no doubt about that. Gine said. She thought these competitions were silly, but if Kakarot was having fun, then who was she to say so otherwise? Anyways, she decided not to worry about it anymore and told him to continue with recounting his adventures. But she was in for more worry when Kakarot went on with how he single-handedly brought down a brutal military regime by fighting it all the way to its headquarters in an icy tundra. He was hesitant at first, but he said that he did indeed kill some soldiers, the Red Ribbon Army as they were called. But that these were very bad men who were murdering innocent people just to claim the Dragon Balls. He finished them off after defeating several robots and finally killing the leader, a man named General White. It was a lot to take in, and the mention of Kakarot actually killing someone made a cold pit open in Gine's stomach. She knew that something like this would happen someday, that Kakarot would get a taste for taking a life one way or another. She hoped it would never happen, but it would be against his Saiyan nature to fight to the death no matter how much she nurtured him. She hated killing, even if she thought they were bad people deserving such a fate. She had seen and participated in far too much of it to take any positive attributions from it. And now her own son had actual blood on his hands. But, at least the lives he took were those of evildoers. It was a sad solace to her heart, but she would take it. Kakarot assured her that he never wants to kill anybody, but if they were threatening innocents then he would stop them any way he could, even if it meant deadly force. He even gave one of the robots he was fighting a chance to change their ways, and he ended up befriending it. That replaced the cold in her with warmth, almost unbelieving at how he could turn a killing machine into a friend. She was even more amazed that humans had the technology to create artificial versions of themselves to bridge the gap in power with a Saiyan. But her son never lied to her, no matter how strange his tales may sound. This planet truly was full of surprises. Gine said she was happy for him that he did that and gave that machine a chance at life. And the android, Ader as Kakarot called him, could learn to live a normal life that his creator denied him. She hoped he would. Moving on to lighter details of his trip, he got to see where Bulma lived at West City, the awesome capsule corporation run by her father, and got to see Chi-Chi again. They were now continuing their search for the Dragon Balls, and Kakarot was with Chi-Chi just before he arrived, saying he wanted to go visit his mom and grandfather. And here they were now. Can you come to the next tournament with me, Mom? Kakarot asked when he was finished. Gine suddenly felt uncomfortable at that idea. Well, I don't know, I mean. Ah, please. Her son almost begged. It's really fun. And I wished you were there to see me fight. I know you do, sweetie. But, I don't want to fight other people. She said plainly. Kakarot looked like he couldn't comprehend what she was saying. But you and Grandpa fight all the time. Why don't you want to fight others? Well, your grandpa is all I need to fight. And you. So, I'm happy with that. Gine answered quickly. Not unless you want to learn something new. Gohan commented. Gine turned to him sharply. I don't need to. She didn't need him to argue against her. She turned back to Kakarot. Besides, there's work to do here. You may be lucky to go out on your own, but we have chores here to do for the winter. You said that when I left to go train with Master Roshi, and it's winter now, so there aren't as many chores to do. He complained. She remembered that. Kakarot begged her before he left for her to go with him, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. She said she had a lot of work on the grounds to do to get ready before the snow came, but in reality, she was just too scared to leave the place she called home for 12 years. She supposed she had gotten too used to the life of a hermit, but she felt set in her ways anyway. I know I said that, but I just don't want to go, that's all. She said unconvincingly. Kakarot looked puzzled. But why? Because, well, as I said, your grandpa and I fight all the time. There's no need to fight others. She tried to say. I thought you said you had chores to do. Gohan said slightly teasingly. Gine looked at him with a slight twinge of anger. She loved Gohan with all her heart for everything he has done, for taking them in, being a father figure to her and Kakarot for all these years, but she really didn't need him to try and push her out of her comfort zone. She found it silly really, how she talked about trying to get Kakarot to do the same not long ago, but now it seemed like the tables were turned on her. She also tried to fight off the fear she felt that this might be his way of trying to end the silent agreement, as words of her venturing away from here were now getting tossed around. Gine turned to Kakarot and said with as much a motherly commanding voice as she could. I'm not going, and that's final. She said almost angrily, hoping to end it there. Kakarot looked to the floor in utter defeat, his shoulders sagged, and his eyes filled with sadness. Her sternness melted into guilt by just looking at him. She really didn't want to disappoint him like this, but she couldn't bring herself to consider fighting in a silly competition. They all knew she was the strongest person on the planet, and she would easily win, so what would be the point if there wasn't a challenge? Plus, she was beyond uncomfortable with the idea of being around large crowds of other people. Winning the title of champion would only bring her unwanted attention, and she'd have no idea what to do then. You could just go as a spectator, just to see what it's like. Gohan suggested. She and Kakarot looked at him incredulously. Huh, oh, yeah, her son agreed enthusiastically. You don't have to fight, you could just watch. Gine said, Still not sure. She appreciated Gohan's ideas that took her insecurities and concerns into consideration. At least she won't be the center of attention. But still, that's a lot of unfamiliar people to be around. Please, Kakarot pleaded, his eyes wide and begging. As Gine looked into his pleading gaze, her resolve crumbled. Kakarot could be downright infuriating sometimes, but there was no doubt her love for her son overtook any reservations of trying to break his heart. How could she say no to her sweet little boy? She sighed, finally caving in. All right, she muttered in defeat. Yay. Kakarot almost leapt out of his seat. But she lifted a finger up, but only as a spectator. Don't sign me up to fight. Understand? Kakarot lifted his pinky. Promise, he said, then wrapped his pinky around her finger like a handshake. She was bemused by the gesture but took it as an agreement. You promise to come too? He asked, not letting go of her finger yet. I promise, she said almost offhandedly. Okay. Kakarot let go. Right then, Gine changed the topic and looked towards the stove. The water was now boiling in the cast iron pot. Let's get dinner started, shall we? She said as she got up to prepare some mixed vegetables for chopping. Kakarot suddenly spoke up. Can we have a marriage for dinner? It took a full 5 seconds for Gine to realize what he just said, then she looked back toward him dumbfounded. Excuse me, was all she could say. I said can we have a marriage for dinner? He said again, as innocent as always. Gine blinked, having no idea what to say still. What did you mean by that, dear boy? Gohan asked, just as bewildered. Well, I was just curious but what kind of food marriage was. I almost had a bit before I got here, so I thought if mom could make some, whatever it is, we could try it. He said as if he was trying to explain a simple question, oblivious as to why his mother and grandfather stared at him agape. Gine shook her head in disbelief. There was a lot to unpack with what he just said, he couldn't possibly be that ignorant. Could he? And he almost had some. What did that even mean? Did he? Kakarot, she began, thinking that she should figure out how this big misunderstanding took root. Where did you hear that marriage was food? Huh? Kakarot asked, as if sensing that there must be a problem from how his mother was reacting. It's not a food. She really shook her head now. No, it isn't. Oh, he sounded slightly disappointed. What is it then? Gine had no idea how he wasn't aware of this social union concept, but she guessed that they never had to cover it in his homeschooling since there wasn't any immediate need to. Still, it would be better for him to learn about it now than in a more embarrassing situation. Well, it's when two people, mostly a man and a woman, take each other to be their partners for the rest of their lives. She tried to put simply. Take each other to be partners. Kakarot repeated, the concept sounding so alien to him. Yes, she went on. It means that they love each other very much and want to stay together forever. Gohan picked up where Gine left off. They have a big ceremony called a wedding where friends and family come to watch them commemorate the moment the man and woman declare their love for each other. Then they make a socially binding pledge to spend the rest of their lives together, where they become husband and wife respectively. That is what the saying, to be married means. Hence the word, marriage. He finished with a high note as if finishing one of his brilliant lectures. That's right. Gine agreed, grateful for Gohan helping her out. Oh, Kakarot took in this new information. So, when a man and woman love each other very much, they get married by saying they want to be with each other forever. Yes. Kakarot thought for a moment, trying to wrap his mind around this concept. But, does that mean any man and woman that says they love each other? Well, no. I mean, they could. Gine tried to elaborate. It's supposed to be between people who are not blood related but are very, very close. Like they have a very powerful emotional bond with each other, as if they can't stand being apart from each other. So, they make a promise to live together. Oh, said Kakarot. So, Marriage means two people saying they love each other and end up living together. Yes. Mainly unrelated people who want to be together to start a family. Gine said, glad she was able to get this new thing to him across and not mess up his first impression on how pair bonding works. Start a family? He asked. Yes, people who want to be mothers and fathers together. She added. Mothers and fathers. She nodded but then regretted it. He held his chin thinking. She dreaded that he was going to ask how that worked. He may now finally grasp the basics of marriage but wasn't quite ready for the talk yet. So, did you and my father get married? He asked. This caught her by surprise and forgot about worrying about what he would have asked. Well, sort of, she said carefully. Sort of. Yeah, Saiyans don't marry the same way humans do. In what way? In every way, she thought. Well, for one, they didn't call it marriage. It didn't even happen that much at all. Really? Yes. Gine said. Indeed, marriage was a very rare thing in Saiyan society. Only the super elites and royal family practiced it, the general belief being that they were the only ones worthy enough to make a holy declaration that they shall keep their superior bloodlines alive through each other. Saiyans didn't stick with partners or even fall in love either. Only to become parents. And when the children are born, they went their separate ways. She said simply. Oh, it never ceases to amaze me how different Saiyans are from humans. Gohan said. Gine corrected. So, you didn't love my dad? Kakarot asked. Oh no, absolutely I did love him. She said fiercely, trying to quell any doubt about that idea. We were more like an unofficial couple. She tried to explain. Unofficial? Like it means we were kind of married, just that we were not. She said, thinking her own answer sounded lame. How can you be married and not married at the same time? Kakarot said, confused. Well, it's not that. Like I said, Saiyans didn't join together as humans do. But the important part was that we loved each other. But you said we Saiyans don't love each other's partners. He pointed out. I know, and they didn't. But, we were the exception I guess. She figured it was as much of a guess. All other Saiyans in the bottom of the caste like herself were as cold as they can be, and she never knew another as gentle as she was. She had thought this over all her life, and she still couldn't figure it out. At least until she met Bardock. Sure, he was a stone-cold killer like any other warrior, but she saw something special in him that made her look up to him. And when she learned he did indeed have a soft spot, there was some good in other Saiyans after all. Sure, he never said he loved her out loud, but she knew he did in his heart somewhere, for he definitely stuck around much longer than any other Saiyan ever would and went out of his way to protect her. It was almost un-Saiyan-like. Exception. So, does that mean we are different? That I can stick around with whoever my partner is? Kakarot said. Gine forced herself to stop thinking about Bardock lest she risked getting upset in front of her son. Yes, Kakarot, you can. You are far kinder and more compassionate than any other Saiyan who has ever lived. I do hope you do find someone special to spend your life with and cherish, but you don't have to if you don't want to. She explained with a smile. Wow. Kakarot mouthed in near awe as he took her words into consideration. He truly believed his mother was very wise and knew him better than he knew himself and was grateful to be her son. But another question came to mind. So, how do the husband and wife become moms and dads? His mother's face paled. Well, this was an already interesting evening with trying to correct the concept of marriage. But now she may have to explain the concept of copulation to her son so soon. Ehem. Gohan coughed to interject. So, Kakarot, where did you hear that you were supposed to get married? Gine was thankful for the diversion from that awkward conversation. Then she recalled that Kakarot did mention that he almost had some marriage. However weird that sounded. Did that mean that? She turned to her son before he could answer Gohan's question. Kakarot, Did promise to someone that you'll marry them. Kakarot thought for a moment. Oh, was all he said, like he just remembered something. What? Gine asked, worried about whatever it was. It's just that, I heard the word marriage from Chi-Chi. I thought it meant that she was going to have some kind of feast or something with me for saving her village. But, I guess she meant. Ah, Gine thought. Now she saw what the problem was. So, I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with Chi-Chi. He said, disbelieving, realization hitting him. I guess that's what she meant. Gohan finished for him nonchalantly. Gine was blunter. Son, you made a big mistake. Yeah, she hoped her son would find a mate someday, and this Chi-Chi sounded like a very nice girl from what she heard in his stories, especially that if she was royalty in some way. But he was nowhere near ready to be wedded off this early in life. What am I going to do? Kakarot pleaded, looking worried. I told her I would have that feast. I thought she said it was when I went to go see her again. It's okay, sweetheart. We can sort this out. Gine assured him. We'll just tell Chi-Chi the truth. The truth? Yes. You misunderstood what she said, so you tell her that you're not going to marry her. Gine explained. Okay, but, Kakarot started, looking uncertain about something. But what? He continued. But I promised her I would come back for that. I don't want to break a promise. Gine felt touched that her boy was such an honest soul. But a mistake was a mistake. You made a promise on something you didn't understand. You shouldn't have to fulfill it if you were misled for any reason. Kakarot thought about that, then reluctantly agreed. I guess you're right. Okay then. Gine said, when are you supposed to see her? He shrugged. I'm not sure. I just told her that I would be back sometime. That's good, so not too much of a rush, but the sooner the better still. She said as she came up with a plan. We'll go see her tomorrow and set things straight with her. Kakarot frowned as he thought it over, then nodded. Okay. Good. With everything settled, Gine turned back to go into the kitchen. She paused when she saw that the pot had stopped bubbling. They had talked for so long that they had forgotten about dinner and all the water had boiled away. A good 2 hours gone for that. Leftovers? She asked them. The next morning after they were finished with their morning chores, Kakarot and Gine walked outside into the cold morning air. He stood there waiting for her, and she felt slightly annoyed at how he seemed to be waiting for her to solve his problem. Gine also remembered that she was still trying to properly teach him how to fly so she wouldn't have to come along on a task like this. So where do I have to fly you to? Nimbus. Kakarot called into the sky, cutting her off. A few moments later, she heard the put-put sound of his favorite yellow cloud that came out of nowhere and stopped right in front of them. Kakarot jumped on and glanced at his mother. Come on, Mom. Jump on. Gine stared at the yellow cloud and remembered something. Didn't you say you have to be pure of heart to ride this? Yeah, Kakarot answered. Why? Gine looked uncomfortable. Well, I'm not sure if I'm. She tried to repress the thoughts of all the things she felt didn't make her worthy of being called pure. Sure you are. You're my mom. You have to be pure. He said plainly. She was moved by his words, but oh how little did he know her. Aside from their heritage and family, Gine never talked to him much about her past and she hoped that she would never have to. The painful memories of her serving as a planet-purging warrior still haunted her. Dozens of planets she helped conquer and millions of people she helped kill. There was nothing that would ever erase what she had done, even if she hated doing it. What was done couldn't be undone. Just try it, Kakarot urged. There was no way she could delay further. Bracing herself, Gine leapt onto the Nimbus without thinking. And landed on the soft and fluffy cloud like it was a mattress. Her jaw dropped. See, that wasn't so bad. Her son beamed at her. How? Gine wondered to herself, still not believing what she saw. How could she be considered good enough to ride a cloud that somehow knew if you were a good soul or not? Alright, let's go, Kakarot said as they took off, tearing her attention away. The cloud picked up great speed, flying faster than even Gine could. Below them, the mountains and forest of Paozushi had grown used to receded behind them. Once they reached a cruising altitude, the land before them gave way to grasslands and a vast desert way out on the horizon. They didn't talk as they flew since the wind was blasting past them loudly, so Gine was left to dwell on her thoughts. She was still struggling with the little revelation she was literally riding on. She was pure of heart after all. Even after all of the horrible things she had done. It was hard to accept, but a small part of her felt a weight lifted from her soul. She may not have been a bad person. But that would be for a higher power to decide, if there ever was one. Here we are. Kakarot shouted over the wind. Gine snapped out of her thoughts and looked around. They must have flown for a while since she didn't recognize this place at all. A single mountain jutting out of the desert, looking recently burned but lush greenery was growing back on it. She could see a village down below, dots that were people moving about. They all stopped and looked up at them as they flew over, then started waving and cheering. Gine felt a pang of anxiety take hold as she was already getting attention in a very unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people. Even if it was a small village like the one near Paozu she visited before, it still made her chest feel tight. Kakarot. A voice called out from below. In the midst of the crowd, she spotted a towering hulk of a man she assumed was the Ox King. Kakarot did mention that he was a giant, but didn't think a human could be that large. Next to him was a young girl, probably as old as Kakarot. Clad only in a blue two-piece armored bikini, cape, and a pink-bladed helmet, she was waving to them and called out to them again. Is that Chi-Chi? She asked him. Yep. Kakarot replied, sounding nervous. She could at least be a bit more modest, Gine thought. They made a slow arch on their descent and came to stop just a few feet off the ground in front of Chi-Chi and her father. After leaping off the nimbus, the girl gleefully ran up to Kakarot and hugged him, squeezing him tightly. The small crowd of villagers around them cheered. I knew you'd come back. Chi-Chi squealed with delight. Kakarot tried to look pleased to see her, but he looked anything besides that. Great to see you again, Kakarot. Ox King said as he approached, towering over them. Chi-Chi let go of Kakarot and held his hands, her smile was wide and full of joy. I'm so happy you came back so soon, she said, then noticed Gine standing behind him. Oh, hello. Are you Kakarot's mother? Trying not to look too nervous in front of these strangers, she bowed politely. Yes, I am. Then extended her hand. My name is Gine. Hello, Gine. I'm Princess Chi-Chi, she said as she bowed in return and shook Gine's hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Chi-Chi. Kakarot has told me a lot about you. Chi-Chi waved dismissively. Oh, please. The pleasure is all ours. My brave Kakarot here saved our kingdom twice already. He's my hero, she said with hearts in her eyes. Then Chi-Chi turned towards the giant behind her. And this is my father, the Ox King. It is a great honor to meet you, Gine, he said with a smile. Oh, well, thank you so much for that, she said cordially. Gine had never been welcomed with such high praise before, making her feel ever more awkward. Oh no, thank you. Without Kakarot our kingdom would have long been destroyed by the fire and the Red Ribbon Army. You should be very proud of your son, Gine, he is a brave young man. Ox King said appraising Ly. Kakarot didn't like the spotlight he was in, shifting and looking away embarrassed. Gine felt his discomfort with being the center of attention amplifying her social anxiety, but she couldn't help but smile with pride at how humble he was acting while being hailed for his heroic deeds. Ox King continued. We're so glad he came back so soon too, since Chi-Chi here was anxious to marry him. And now that we are all here, Chi-Chi stepped in. We can finally get this wedding underway, she declared aloud, and all the villagers broke out into celebration. Kakarot looked very uncomfortable now, and his mother even more so. She knew that telling this lovely young girl that Kakarot couldn't marry her was going to be a difficult task for them, but would she really humiliate her in front of an audience including her own father? It made her want to just disappear. But she knew what she had to do. Gine cleared her throat. Yeah, about that. I'm afraid there has been a misunderstanding. Huh. The smile on both Chi-Chi's and Ox King's faces fell. I'm terribly sorry I have to say this, but my son cannot get married yet. She said, hoping to get to the point but added the yet to soften the blow of such news. What? Chi-Chi exclaimed in shock. The villagers suddenly fell silent. Gine felt all eyes were now boring in on them. Kakarot fidgeted nervously and she squeezed his shoulders reassuringly for him as well as for her to keep her courage up. Kakarot cannot marry you today. It's a little embarrassing, but he misunderstood what you said about coming back to be married. He thought he would come back for a feast or something, rather than be wedded to you, Chi-Chi. She gave the girl a moment to process what she said, but it looked she had been slapped in the face at just hearing those words. I'm so sorry for the mix-up. I hope you understand that he cannot keep his pro. Is this a joke? Chi-Chi exploded, her eyes blazing with fury. How could you make such a promise to me? Were you just being cruel? She yelled directly at Kakarot, who backed away fearfully. Gine knew Chi-Chi was just a weak human, but her motherly instincts caused her to raise her guard for her son. She figured the girl would take this news poorly with what her son told her of the princess's temper, but was taken aback by seeing just how fearsome she was. I'm sorry, Chi-Chi. I wasn't being mean, I swear. Kakarot tried to explain. I just thought marriage was some kind of food or something. Some kind of food, Chi-Chi repeated, sounding aghast. Are you kidding me? WHO thinks marriage means food. Kakarot fumbled for something to say. Really? I mean it. I just didn't know what that word meant until I asked my mom about it, that's all. But she's right, I can't marry you yet. His explanation only made her angrier. Oh. And why is that? You obviously know what marriage means now, so why can't you marry me? Don't you like me? Or is it because you are a complete idiot? No. Kakarot said indignantly. I do like you. It's just that, were. Then what? She shouted, too enraged to wait for an answer. Are you really that stupid? Gine stepped forward. Hey, she shouted back, startling Chi-Chi. Don't you dare speak to my son like that. She chastised her. Gine wasn't going to interrupt Kakarot trying to sort this mess out with Chi-Chi, but she had to put her foot down when the girl started disparaging him. Chi-Chi regained her wits, and her gaze hardened at Gine. Well, he shouldn't have been so dumb as to not know something that everybody else does. And play tricks on my heart. Gine was highly offended by her outburst, as if this little brat hadn't even listened to what she just said about not insulting her child. Both the Saiyan and motherly parts of her wanted to pound Chi-Chi into the ground, but she channeled whatever restraint she had left and addressed her calmly. My son is many things, but he is not stupid, nor the kind of person who would play tricks. He is the kindest soul you would ever meet. After all, didn't he save your kingdom? She reminded her. Chi-Chi's expression softened a little, but still unbelieving. Yes, he did, she said, at least acknowledging the truth of his good deeds. Then she looked back towards Kakarot. But, you really didn't know what marriage meant? No, I didn't, Kakarot said with as much honesty as he could. Gine relaxed a little but remained stern. I'm not sure if he told you, but we live in a rather isolated place. He was born and raised there his whole life, and I homeschooled him as best I could, but there are some customs in normal human society he has not yet learned about. And the concept of matrimony was one of them. Chi-Chi's anger completely faded. She finally believed Gine, and the anger was replaced with guilt and shame at what she had just said. Now I ask that you apologize to him. Gine ordered. No one who is truly getting married should ever speak to a spouse the way you did. That one sentence nearly crushed Chi-Chi's spirit, as all her features sagged and looked down. Shame overwhelmed her as she chewed on Gine's words. She was right. A loving wife would never even dare to dream of acting so horribly mean to her handsome husband. She turned to Kakarot, but she couldn't bring herself to look him in the eye. Her face hidden and tears threatening to fall. Kakarot, she tried to force the words out, her throat choking up. I'm sorry I yelled at you. You didn't do anything wrong for not knowing what I wanted from you, and why you don't have to marry me if you don't want to. Saying that last part made the tears fall. She was so looking forward to finally taking this young and handsome savior of her home as her future husband. But now, it was all for naught. Through this entire exchange, the villagers and the Ox King stayed deathly quiet. He was ready to step in to defend Chi-Chi, if need be, but now disappointment took over his features as his daughter apologized to the boy who saved them. He was very sad she won't be marrying him after all, but having known his daughter better than anybody, he did agree that her temper did get the better of her sometimes. A fiery young woman, just like her mother. It's okay, Chi-Chi. I know you didn't mean to be mad. Kakarot said, being gentle. Chi-Chi wiped away her tears. Thank you. She took some comfort knowing that he didn't hold anything against her. It's just that I really liked you, and I wanted to get married soon. Guess you got too excited. Gine muttered softly, but her son heard. Kakarot loved his mother to death, but something in him didn't care for her snide remark. He felt guilty too. Despite trying to set things straight, he didn't mean to cause so much grief with Chi-Chi. He really did like her. She was a great fighter and found her fiery spirit fascinating. Now it seemed like the friendship they made was over, especially since this was the first time he had to go back on a promise. Even Gine felt a little bad seeing this young girl's dreams crumble, but it had to be done. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, Chi-Chi. She said, about to turn and leave when Kakarot spoke up. Wait, huh? Gine looked to him confused, and saw the look in his eyes when he had an idea. Say, Chi-Chi, he started, which she looked up still teary-eyed. Would you like to come look for the Dragon Balls with me? Both Chi-Chi and Gine were caught off guard. Really? She asked. Yeah, just because we can't get married now doesn't mean we still can't go on an adventure, right? A few seconds passed, then Chi-Chi threw her arms around Kakarot, squealing in joy. Oh, thank you, Kakarot, thank you, thank you, thank you. She praised, oblivious to Kakarot almost choking from her grip. The villagers were taken aback, but seeing their princess happy about something again made them applause. Ox King was surprised as well but decided to clap along as his daughter and Kakarot made peace. Gine stood there not sure what to say or do. They came here to stop the wedding, and already he's backpedaling with this girl. She wasn't sure how Chi-Chi could be as nice as Kakarot made her out to be in his stories. Gine was astonished at how Chi-Chi could be so emotionally volatile, seeing her go from joy to rage to despair to joy again in a matter of minutes. She wasn't sure what Kakarot saw in Chi-Chi, but she wasn't going to stop him since she's helped him enough already. If he wanted to have her tag along on his adventures, then it was up to him. After he made it clear that he was choking, Chi-Chi let go of him, embarrassed. Sorry. Was just so happy. I know you are, Kakarot said as he rubbed his neck. Well, we better go, Gine said, trying to put an end to whatever sabotage Kakarot was making on her efforts. Ah, really? Chi-Chi said with disappointment. Yes, she said firmly, not wanting to lose her patience with this girl or her son. I'm glad we got this sorted out. Ox King decided to speak up. Gine didn't agree with these new developments but was glad they won't start a wedding right now. Me too. She bowed politely. It was a pleasure to meet you, Ox King. Oh, likewise, he said in return, still hopeful that things will work out. Come on, Kakarot. Oh, alright, he said resignedly, then held Chi-Chi's hands. I'll come by to let you know when the quest starts. Chi-Chi was more than ready to accept but stopped and looked up at Gine frightfully. Are you okay with this, Gine? She asked, as if by extension wanting her permission to court her son. Gine couldn't fathom why Kakarot suddenly wanted to continue contact with this girl again. But as long as they weren't getting married now, then her job was done, and they could do as they pleased short of making decisions they were too young for. Yes, I am okay with it. Yay. She jumped with joy as if Gine had given her blessing, then turned to Kakarot alluringly. Then it's a date, Chi-Chi said, then kissed him on the cheek. He normally wouldn't be embarrassed by such things, but his cheeks flushed red. Not wanting to be kissed in front of his mom. I'll see you later then, he said, collecting himself, then hopped on the flying Nimbus. See you soon, my hero. Chi-Chi called out from below as everyone cheered and faded into the background behind them. On the ride home, they didn't talk for a good stretch of the way home until Gine broke the silence. Kakarot, why did you promise to meet her again? He looked over and smiled, because I didn't want her to feel bad, that's all. Gine was confused, but then, you wanted to cheer her up. Yeah, Gine thought for a moment. She didn't entirely like Chi-Chi with the way she let her temper get the better of her. But she did have to admit that girl had the fiery spirit that any Saiyan would find attractive in their counterpart. Just like how Bardock first met her, so fiery in their arguments with each other turning into moments of passion. How could she have missed it? But still, you didn't have to do that, you know. I know, he said, then added, but I wanted to. It's because she's a great fighter, isn't she? Kakarot felt caught. Yeah, she is. Gine chuckled. Sure, Kakarot was a kind-hearted soul that didn't hold ill to almost anyone, but he still was like any other Saiyan boy on the verge of manhood. They couldn't say no to a woman who could put up a good fight. Plus, she's the only other person pure of heart to ride the Nimbus. He said, patting the cloud they were sitting on. She's a good person, Mom. No doubt about that. Gine totally forgot that detail. Remembering that if she was good enough to ride it despite all of her horrific wrongdoings, then would a young girl be too? Could this cloud really be the ultimate judge of character? She guessed it was. Well, if you really like her that much, you two can get married someday if you want to. But you should still wait until you are older and at least get to know each other better first. It wasn't her giving her blessing for them to marry, but once he was old enough it will be a choice he has to make on his own. Okay, Kakarot said, and they continued on towards home. Judging from his answer, she guessed the wedding won't have to be called off. Master Roshi told me to rely on my own strength, so I've been making my way around without the Nimbus to get ready for the next tournament. Running on foot across land and swimming across the sea. Gohan was taken aback by how Kakarot had been able to pull off such feats just to prepare for a competition, but also not surprised as well, given his abilities. That's amazing, my boy, you'll get stronger much faster that way, and pushing yourself with such handicaps is a good way to challenge your strength as a martial artist. Quite the turtle hermit way indeed. He did have to inwardly chuckle at how literal Kakarot had taken his former master's philosophy on training as actual instructions. But he guessed for a Saiyan, it's probably the only way he'd get stronger anyway. Thanks, Grandpa. I'm so glad I got to learn such ways to live by from Roshi. If there is no real challenge, then it is not worthwhile. Kakarot beamed happily. Gine sat across the table and took another sip of her tea. She smiled genuinely. Me too, son. I'm really glad you've taken these things to heart. She said, but she was somewhat distracted. Kakarot had come back after another year of traveling. He had grown a couple inches taller and was more muscularly defined, on the brink of his growth spurt. He told them all about his adventures of how he fought pirates at the bottom of the ocean, defeated the last remnants of the Red Ribbon Army, trained with a talking cat named Corrine, meeting his master's sister who was a witch or fortune teller of the like, saving villages from demons, and foiling con artists. During all this, Kakarot took his mother's advice and brought Chi-Chi along on his escapades. She was still sour about them not getting married, but from the way he described their time together on this trip they had grown closer. Trotting the globe doing something they actually enjoyed doing, fighting. Kakarot even said they made a date out of it once, since it was the most romantic thing he could think of when pried by Chi-Chi. Through it all, he had grown to like her since she was a capable fighter unlike Bulma or another girl in their group named Launch, not to mention they were all older than him too. Gine couldn't fathom why Kakarot could stand to be around someone as volatile as Chi-Chi, for even she had a temper that rivaled some of the more ill-mannered female Saiyan warriors she once knew. But from how fond Kakarot described the way Chi-Chi fought and how she saved his tail from being lost again to the Pilaf gang, there was a real bond growing between them. But Gine focused on one story that Kakarot shared. That they had used the Dragon Balls to wish his friend Upa's father back to life after he was murdered by the cruel mercenary Dao. Gine was so proud of him for using the wish for something so noble. But her heart stopped when she realized that he said he used the Dragon Balls to resurrect someone. So, it is possible. Something that had plagued her mind and heart ever since they learned the truth of the Dragon Balls. A hope she never dared to entertain unless she knew for sure. Could she really? You ready to go to the tournament, Mom? Kakarot interrupted. What tournament? She asked, feeling a little guilty that she wasn't paying attention. Yeah, the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. You said you'll come along next time, and it'll be in a few days, so I hope you're ready to since I'm supposed to swim all the way there as part of my training. You could fly or take the Nimbus though. Gine thought for only a second or two. I'm not going. What? Kakarot couldn't believe what he was hearing. I said I'm not going. Gine stated flatly. But, you promised. Kakarot objected almost bewildered. I did, she said just as bewildered. Yeah, you did. You said you didn't want to fight but you'd come to watch instead. No, I did, she paused, then let out a sheepish, oh. She did remember, but only vaguely. It was almost 3 years ago, and she mostly said it to please him. But now a promise she didn't mean to make had come back to bite her. Yeah, you definitely did. Kakarot reminded her. You said you'll come to the tournament only to watch, but I would really like you to come along, Mom. Gine considered it for a moment but still felt resolute. She hadn't meant to mislead her son for something she wasn't serious about. But something in her made her ashamed and not wanting to look her son in the eye if she followed through on this. You promised. Kakarot reminded her one last time, his eyes wide and pleading. Her resolution faltered at that. Who was she to break a promise to her own child? Sure, the prospect of stepping out of the safe confines of the mountains into the crowded world terrified her, but she would do anything for her little boy, especially to cheer him on. She let out a long sigh. Okay, I'll go. Kakarot jumped and cheered. Yay. While Kakarot celebrated and hugged her in many thanks, she tried to suppress the anxiety that was beginning to bubble up. I'll go with you too. Gohan said, wrapping his arms around both of them. It would be nice to see the big city again, as well as catch up with Roshi. Yeah, it really will. Kakarot chirped, getting even more excited and laughing with Grandpa Gohan. Gine let them bask in the anticipation while she left herself to resignation. Go get your things packed, boy, we'll leave in the morning. Gohan instructed. You betcha, Grandpa, Kakarot said, then ran enthusiastically up the ladder to their room. Gohan and Gine were left alone at the table. I hope it doesn't make you feel too uncomfortable. Gohan said, reading Gine's mind and trying to ease her worry. It does, she said simply. She really didn't want to go. That's the thing about your boy. There's no procrastination or going back with him. Gohan said. Very true, and I can't bring myself to break a promise. Gine admitted. Gohan nodded. An honorable thing to do, my dear. I'll be there if it's any consolation, and it isn't as terrifying as you may think it to be. I know, it's just. Gine tried to say, but couldn't find any words to fit her feelings. You haven't stepped out that often since helping Kakarot out with that girl. Gohan finished for her. Gine hated to admit it, but she nodded. She was afraid of being around other people. Why else had she spent nearly 15 years never venturing farther than the nearest village unless it was absolutely necessary? Not without reason, of course, for she never wanted to be seen or found. Not with Frieza still out there if he was still hunting down the last of her kind. But she had to remind herself that he wasn't here, for she would know if he was. And he more than likely never will. It was why she chose this planet in the first place. Still, paranoia was the best way to survive. But was that really any way to live? Maybe it's time to step out a little further. Gohan encouraged. As enlightening and fulfilling as the hermit life can be, our world has much to offer. Not to mention to see what's out there in order to fully appreciate why I like it here better. Gine looked at him for a long moment. She never really thought of that idea, and it did make sense. How could she know what she liked most of this cozy place if she was missing out on other sights of Earth? Since this place was an unknown paradise to her once. The info dump on planet Vegeta never did justice to how peaceful this planet was, so who knew what else was out there? And if Kakarot's experiences were anything to go by, untold wonders awaited at every corner. Besides, she couldn't say no to Kakarot. She loved seeing him happy, and if going to this silly tournament was the price for that, then who was she to start saying no now? Maybe there might be some strong warriors who could surprise her and bring a challenge for her son. Could be entertaining and educational. I guess you are right. She said to herself more than to him, but Gohan smiled at how she came to this conclusion too. I'm glad you see it that way, he said as he got up and stretched. Well, I'll go for a stroll before turning in. Okay. Gine nodded nervously, but Gohan walked up to her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. It will be fine, my dear, you have nothing to worry about. After all, we are only rooting for your boy, Gohan said gently to her. Gine looked back at him, tense, then exhaled some of her stress. She trusted him. He saved them. If what he says is true, I believe you, she said, squeezing his hand on her shoulder. Gohan smiled brightly, then walked outside, replacing the door over the entrance while Gine sat alone at the table. Could be fun, she said to herself. 2 days later, they made it to Papaya Island. Kakarot swam the whole way while his mother flew over him and Gohan rode the Nimbus, stopping only to ask for directions from a very astonished crew of an oil tanker. Now he was sprinting down the dirt roads into the streets of the town while she and Gohan flew above him, Kakarot clad only in the skins of a tiger killed while making landfall. Come on, Mom, we have to hurry, Kakarot shouted as if to get them to go faster. Or else I won't be able to register. Are you sure you don't want a lift with the Nimbus? Grandpa Gohan playfully asked the obvious solution. The fact that the Nimbus and his mother flying had completely went over his head. No thanks. Kakarot breathed while running as fast as he could. No cheating. Gine really admired how much her son stuck to his training, but with how much he wanted to not miss this tournament he seemed to have reached an impasse. Right. Then we have no time to lose. Grandpa Gohan chuckled. On the last long stretch of road lined with trees, they came across a red bricked wall and an archway with a small crowd of people. Hey, Kakarot called out. Up ahead, an old man in a black suit and hat turned to them. There he is, he called out. The rest of the group that Gine didn't recognize almost burst out cheering seeing her son. But she immediately recognized the blue-haired girl as Bulma. He made it, a blonde-haired girl said, whom Gine thought looked awfully mean-looking. Kakarot gave one last leap forward and closed the distance to the group in an instant. Hey everyone, long time no see. He cheerfully greeted the group. As Gine and Gohan landed behind him, she took in the gathering of her son's friends as they started to catch up with him. Gine looked at the people she had only heard of in her son's stories. The way he described them made them seem like the best kind of people imaginable, but she figured that his naivety gave her the best version of them. Seeing them interact with him now like they were the best of friends somehow made them seem like as he told her. She felt so proud that her son found good camaraderie with these people, the company she never found amongst Saiyans in her old life. Have you gotten taller? Asked a dashing young man with sun-scorched skin and flowing black hair. Sure have, Kakarot answered. A short bald kid near him sulked. But I'm older than you. This isn't right, he complained. Calm down, Krillin, not by much he hasn't. The tanned man egged him. Kakarot. A shriek came out as Chi-Chi leapt out of the group and threw herself at Kakarot, hugging him tightly. Hey, Chi-Chi. He hugged back but was straining to try and get himself free from her death grip. Chi-Chi sheepishly let go and stared longingly at him. She was clad in a blue fighting dress GI but still had her pink gloves and boots. She was 15 now just like him, but an inch taller or so. Sorry. It's just so good to see you again. I missed you so much. She said, swooning. Kakarot rubbed the back of his head embarrassed. Yeah. Me too. Not since we took down Dao together. I took him down after you kept him busy. Chi-Chi objected hotly, her sweetness replaced with anger. But I did do all the work in weakening him. He retorted gently. And I saved your tail, didn't I? She shot back, getting angrier. Kakarot tried to calm her down, raising his hands defensively. Yes, you did. You saved the day. Chi-Chi's anger faded away instantly, and she looked away shyly. Ah, thank you. It wasn't anything. It sure was. Kakarot said enthusiastically. You kicked Dao's butt something fierce. I didn't know you could do energy attacks too. Of course I can. Chi-Chi got angry again. How could you forget about my laser helmet? Gine just quietly observed them playfully retorting back and forward, bemused at why Kakarot chose to continue seeing this girl given how much of a pain she was. But she could see the fire in her eyes. Chi-Chi would have made a great Saiyan warrior. Gine turned to the clock and saw that it was closing time. Kakarot. She got his attention. Aren't you going to register? That stopped the little argument. Oh, right. Kakarot turned and ran up to the registration desk. Hello, sorry I'm late, but I'd like to register to fight in the tournament. The clerk was looking very impatient, with this last-minute entry literally taking place the moment he was supposed to close the booth. But he acted civil. Very well then, your name? Son Kakarot. Her son replied. Back to take the gold this time. The clerk asked as he copied down the information. You bet. I'm gonna beat Jackie Chun this time. Kakarot beamed confidently. Well, I wish you the best. He stamped the form. Okay. Son Kakarot, you are all set to compete. Alright. Kakarot leapt with victory. Kakarot, said the elderly man with the walking stick. Gine noticed his long white beard and that he was wearing the exact same shades Gohan gave them to look at the moon with. She figured this was where he got them, and thus he had to be Master Roshi himself. You look awfully winded for someone who flies a cloud. Why weren't you using the Nimbus and why are you late? Roshi said as Kakarot finished signing in. Kakarot looked confused by his outburst. But Master, you said I shouldn't bring the Nimbus cloud and should rely on my own strength. Roshi looked embarrassed for a moment. That I did say. Wait a minute, said the talking pig Gine assumed was Oolong. Are you saying you swam here? Yeah, part of the way. From a place called Yaoi. Kakarot said innocently. Everyone looked dumbstruck at her son. But, Bulma stammered. But that's on the other side of the earth. Gine couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of accomplishment in how her son was able to amaze everyone, but replaced it with humility remembering that humans couldn't do the same feats as she or Kakarot could, so no contest there. It was then that she decided to speak up to stand by her son. It's true, I flew over him the whole way as he swam. Everyone looked at her, the shock deepening in their looks. She suddenly regretted speaking up, not wanting the attention on her. The scariest part is I believe you. Oolong spoke first, then stopped. Wait, who are you? Good to see you again, Gine. Chi-Chi said cordially to her, but there was a coolness in her voice that Gine noticed. Gine. Bulma's face contorted to something of faint recognition, then lit up once it hit her. Oh hey, I remember you. Oh, everyone. Kakarot turned and gestured towards Gine. Quote. This is my mom. Not wanting to show how anxious she was, she gave a bow to them. It's nice to meet you all. Kakarot here has told me so much about you and all the travels you've done together. She said politely. Hopefully good things. Am I right, Krillin? The tanned young man said slyly while the bald kid, Krillin, gave him a shut up look. Oh hush, Yamcha. Bulma playfully slapped the tanned man and turned toward her. It's good to see you again, Gine. It's been a very long time. Indeed it has, Gine said as she shook Bulma's hand. Did you get your lifetime supply of strawberries? Gohan asked. My what? Bulma looked over, confused, then blushed. Oh well, that didn't. Gohan laughed. I'm only kidding. Kakarot told us all about your wild adventure for the Dragon Balls. About how I was the one who saved the world. Oolong quipped. Yep, that too. Still don't know why you wished for panties though. Kakarot said aloud. Everyone laughed hard at Kakarot's innocent remark. It worked, didn't it? Oolong defended himself. Yeah it did. Being a perv saved the world. Who would have thought? Bulma quipped with an eye roll. And besides, you got what you wished for in the end. The tall young man, Yamcha, pulled Bulma close and she blushed, feeling at ease immediately in his embrace. Gine figured Bulma's true intentions with the Dragon Balls were different from what Kakarot relayed, but didn't know what exactly until she saw it now. These two definitely had chemistry. Yamcha extended his hand to Gine's and shook it. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. Likewise, she said. You must be Yamcha. I am. The fearsome desert bandit and friend to Kakarot. He declared in a boosting voice, puffing his chest in a heroic pose that made him look oafish. But nowhere as much of a real friend besides me. Piped Krillin. And you must be Krillin. Gine said, bending down and offering her hand that he shook. His stature was as small as Kakarot's, and he had a mischievous yet kind look to him. That's right. Kakarot and I trained really hard together with Master Roshi for the first tournament. And trained hard they did, said Roshi as he came up to them. Gine bowed respectfully. It's an honor to meet you, Master Roshi. Roshi returned the bow. The pleasure's all mine, Gine. He smiled then shook her hand. Your son is an amazing student. Aside from me of course. Gohan joked, causing Roshi to notice his former pupil. Gohan. Roshi perked in joy. It's good to see you again, Master. Gohan bowed. I see that the years have been treating you nicely. Roshi chuckled. Oh, I'm still hanging in there for someone my age. Of course, the years are always kind to you. Oh definitely. Gine did wonder. This old man was Gohan's master since he was a boy. Gohan looked to be older than him, so how could this guy have been his master? Either he had a very youthful vigor, or he was immortal. So, how've you been? It's been years since I've last seen you. Been doing very well. I've managed to live quite a peaceful life even with these two dropping out of the sky. Gohan quipped slyly. Gine felt panic rising. Was he really going to tell them that they were from another planet? Roshi leaned closer to her and whispered, no need to worry, Gine. I already know the whole story of you and your son. And it's not one I or anyone here will be broadcasting to anyone else anytime soon. Gine felt very grateful at that. She was told this man was a pervert, but she could tell that he was also very wise and kind. Thank you. She said to him. No worries, my dear. Now, let's meet the rest of the Gon. Come out of your shell at last, Roshi. Came another voice. They all turned to see a trio of men led by an old man in a green robe standing before them. Gine sensed the calm and easy-going Roshi tense into something serious as soon as he laid eyes on him. Gine looked him over, her Saiyan and overprotective maternal instincts assessing this new threat. Whoever he was no friend to Roshi. He wore a swan hat and pointed gray mustaches that looked more ridiculous than intimidating. She sensed arrogance dripping from him. A tall bald man behind him had a third eye in his forehead and looked nothing short of cold-blooded. And the shortest of the trio, a dwarf or child, whose skin was as white as porcelain with red cheeks. But he looked so lifeless and still. Crane, I'm amazed that you are still alive. Roshi said to him, his cheery demeanor gone and replaced with contempt. The man Roshi called Crane chuckled evilly. The lines on your face are just as deep, old friend. That was rude, Bulma remarked. Kakarot stared Crane down from behind Roshi and Gine, sensing the bad energy coming from him and readying himself for a fight. Relax, I'm not here to start trouble. I hear a little whisper that your pupils did quite well last time. I guess the saying is true, anything can happen. What's it to you, huh? Roshi yelled impatiently. Crane laughed maniacally. You're out of your league, Roshi, admit it. You were blessed by my absence last time, but we both know that fighting against my team is an exercise in futility. Not even Jackie Chun could handle my boys. Do yourself a favor and go home. The bald three-eyed man grinned threateningly behind his master. The doll-like boy stood still expressionless. Gine wondered if he actually was a doll. Crane looked over all of them and continued his abuse. I sympathize with your crew, I really do. Inadequacy is always such a tough pill to swallow, but it sure beats public humiliation. Gine knew that this little man could not physically harm her or any of them, but the sheer disrespect he was showing to her son and his friends almost made her Saiyan senses tell her to kick his head clean off his shoulders. Thanks for the concern, Roshi interrupted. It's nice to see some things haven't changed. Like you're still full of hot air. Crane's facade of cool arrogance quickly gave way to anger. You better stay out of my way. We're not turning tail for you or anyone. Roshi countered. The two of them stared each other off, their respective students ready behind them to back their masters up. Crane huffed and backed off. You've been warned, now suffer the consequences, he said as he turned around. Let's go, he called to his accomplices. I've wasted enough time with these fools. They complied and followed after him without saying a word. Master Roshi, who was that weirdo? Yamcha asked. His name is Master Shen, but there was a time I used to call him my friend. Roshi spat bitterly. You never mentioned him before. Gohan said. Even he looked surprised given how considerate he was of others. No reason to after he turned his back on me. Roshi said, still not losing sight of where Shen left. Then turned around. But still, no reason to dwell on the past. He said, back in his cheerful mood. The important is that Kakarot is here with all of us. So, let's all meet the rest of the gang, shall we? He said, picking up from where he left off earlier. So, they all exchanged pleasantries, the episode with Shen already forgotten and with Gine officially introduced to everyone in the gang after shaking hands with Yamcha's shape-shifting cat Puar, Roshi's talking turtle, and the other human female of the group, Launch. Over the course of their conversations, she got to learn more of her son's friends as people as all the details of what he told her fell into place. The way they were friends with Kakarot, and how among almost all of them used to be people with not so good intentions. Now, they were a sort of tight-knit group of compadres. They already knew about her and Kakarot's Saiyan heritage, with him having blurted about it and having them coming to accept it with seeing the way he is. Gine forgot that she never got around to telling Kakarot to never tell anyone, even his own friends, about them lest they draw unwanted attention, but they seemed to not entirely believe and thus weren't too inclined to pry about it. Gine couldn't be more thankful for that. She was also touched by how she was immediately accepted as if she were one of them already. Her son was such a good friend to all of them that they accepted him and her without question. Although she had just met them, she really started to feel at ease with them. She never would have thought something like this to be possible, as she never had anything this close with anyone back on planet Vegeta even when she was with Bardock's crew. This world truly was full of wonders. The only exception was Chi-Chi, who wasn't so warm to her as everyone else. Her father couldn't come to the tournament since he had to watch over the kingdom, so it's just her. She didn't really get over having her plans of early marriage to Kakarot undone by Gine. To be fair, Gine didn't like her too much either, but decided not to dwell on that and accept her relationship with her son, and how happy it seemed to make him. Now that we are all acquainted again, Roshi stated, I suggest we all go get a bite to eat before the big fight. At the thought of food, Kakarot leapt as excited as he can be. Everyone else was excited too, even Gine, since no matter how dignified she made herself to be, a Saiyan never turned down a good meal. They don't come any bigger than the World Martial Arts Tournament, so let's get the best in town, Roshi declared, and everyone headed off toward town, Kakarot declaring he'll eat until he burst. Knowing him, he probably just might do that. None of them noticed Roshi looking sheepish as he realized he didn't have any money. The following morning, Gine was on edge. She did not get much sleep the night before, with so many things taking her mind from any place of peace. She spent a good portion of the night trying to ward off Roshi from the girls' room while fighting off how much she overate at dinner. Who would have thought that would happen? The food on this planet was so good, and getting used to sleeping in a hotel. Not that she had never done before. For her time in the Frieza forces, she shared quarters with countless other warriors. But today she was not feeling good at all. She wasn't sure how, but knew there was something off about this day, and it wasn't just her lack of good sleep. Roshi disappeared as they entered the tournament grounds, said he had to go, do something. Gohan quietly confirmed to her that it's to change into Jackie Chun. She immediately knew not to tell anyone. Ladies and gentlemen, came an announcement over the grounds PA system. Welcome to the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. The entire place erupted into cheering. Gine winced at the sound. The sheer volume of people and noise in one place almost overwhelmed her. Not even planet Vegeta on its last day with everyone back home was this crowded. Nothing could have prepared her for this, and with how tired and on edge she felt, she wanted to go home now. The announcer came on again. For all fighters participating, the preliminary matches will take place inside the main building in 5 minutes, so please report in soon. Alright Mom, this is it. I'll see you when this is over, Kakarot said as he clasped her hand, not noticing it was trembling. Gine snapped out of the bombardment of noise for a moment when her son hugged her. Remembering what she was here for, she let that be the force to help her through the fear of being here. She hugged him tightly before he ran off with Krillin and Yamcha. Good luck, she called out before he disappeared into the crowd entering the building. She was here for her son, and she will cheer him on no matter what. First match should be starting now, Oolong mentioned to a worried Bulma while he tried his hand at a vendor game. I just hope they get through it in one piece, she replied, her thoughts wandering towards her friends and the ones she cared most about up against so many strange and scary fighters from all over the world. Over 100 of them against her 4 friends, so many odds to get through, especially for Yamcha despite her confidence in him. Don't worry Bulma, Yamcha and the others will be just fine. They know what they are doing, honest. Puar reassured, holding a drink as big as her. I sure hope you're right. Bulma sighed. The gang had stopped by the food court to get something to eat while they waited for the preliminaries to finish up. Gine sat down with Gohan beside her and tried to focus on eating the strange food before her to take her mind off of the masses of humanity around her. That and her lack of good sleep from the night before had her on edge. She bit into a piece of breaded sausage she had never seen before. The acidic taste of quickly cooked meat mixed with preserved sauces took her aback after that one bite, almost gagging. While the smell of cooked food was enough to make her hungry, the subtle things her sensitive Saiyan senses detected in the scent of these foods made her question the wisdom of consuming more of it. "What is this again?" she asked aloud. "A hot dog," replied Launch in her blonde form. She looked bored out of her mind from just waiting there. "Ya never had one before?" "No, I haven't," Gine replied honestly, making a face at the meat sandwich she held. Launch stared at her for a moment longer as if studying her. "Huh. First time for everything, I guess," she said and went back into staring off into the distance. Gine tried to keep eating, trying not to embarrass herself for not knowing what these things were, along with all the other earthling customs she was trying to learn. Sure, these people were her son's friends, but Kakarot and her were not like them at all and garnered strange looks every now and then. Launch seemed like a nice girl, when she was her docile self and not her blonde self as everyone said to her clandestinely. She forced herself to finish the hot dog, trying to keep it down after she was done. The processed food here couldn't even be called food at all, compared to what she grew and cooked back home. Not even the rawest of meats she used to butcher back on her home planet were as distasteful as the stuff these humans ate here in the cities, which Gine could still not get over just how there could be so many people around. Trying to stay occupied lest she be overstimulated by the constant drone of the people she took in the surroundings. She had to admit that the change in scenery from vast unending forests and mountains to a very festive gathering of harmless humans seems to have some charm to it. But still, a little overwhelming, isn't it? Gohan asked her. Gine could only nod as if he had read her thoughts. She had been on edge ever since they got here. "I can see just one thing that's enough to drive anyone out into the mountains," she said dryly. Gohan nodded in agreement. Though the World Martial Arts Tournament is a grand event to test out your skills in combat, the crowds can definitely get to you as they come from the world of non-fighters. They are just here for the entertainment rather than to learn. If it was just to be with like-minded folks, then it would be more bearable. Gine surveyed the crowd, seeing children begging parents for sweets, overly fat men stuffing their faces with the barely edible food, and rowdy types getting drunk on whatever humans pass here for alcohol. I can definitely see why, too. So, where did that imbecile turtle hermit run off to? Cackled a familiar voice approaching them. Gine groaned inwardly. It was that impudent little old man who called himself Master Shen, or Crane, but came off as nothing more than an agitating nuisance rather than a master of martial arts. In the ocean. Bulma shot at him. "Why don't you go jump in and find him?" "HMPH. Crane scoffed. Knowing him, he probably ran back home too embarrassed to watch his ill-advised pupils get crushed in the tournament. "Oh, shut up," Bulma demanded angrily. Crane stepped closer to her. "It's common knowledge. Roshi's boys can be beaten with one pinky." Oolong and Puar gawked at him, in amazement and a twinge of fear as if they believed him. Gine didn't. If anything, she felt no respect for the man whatsoever. Bulma stood her ground. "You're misinformed. Now please, leave me alone. Go." Crane ignored her. "I can tell by your posture that you're upset. It's tough to back a loser. Cheer up. You don't have to stay with Roshi's team. I could use someone like you." Gine's tail twitched under her skirt. She thought she couldn't get any more revolted from him, but it appeared that she was wrong. He reminded her all too well of the Saiyan elites back on planet Vegeta that acted just like him, complete bullies that pushed around everyone and anyone, especially those below their ranks like her. But this wasn't planet Vegeta. This man had no right to harass her and her friends in such a way. And she wasn't going to let him dish out any more verbal abuse to them. Gine knew she was far stronger than anybody present, and her Saiyan instincts were beginning to tell her to grind this insolent little crane into a bloody smear on the ground to teach him some manners. And that thought was getting more tempting by the moment. Gohan suddenly put a hand on hers. She snapped out of her dark thought and looked at him. Without realizing it, Gine had risen from her seat, but was stopped by his contact with her, and Gohan shook his head discreetly to tell her to not act out. I can't believe I'm listening to you. You're wearing a crane. Bulma continued to argue, her voice laced with disgust. Crane feigned offense. What? I can't believe you're mocking me. This happens to show the status of my power. Gine didn't know what to feel at that moment, anger at Gohan for stopping her from defending their friends, or grateful for him preventing her from making a scene. Either way, she hesitantly let it go and sat back down. Sorry, she whispered as softly as she could to him. He squeezed her hand gently in acknowledgement. Gine mentally tried some breathing exercises Gohan had taught her to help herself calm down. Crane looked over Gine, not giving her a moment's thought, and looked at Launch, who seemed to have dozed off. Hey lady, are you awake or what? She didn't respond, but Gine noticed how the old man stared at Launch's. Ma'am, hello, Crane repeated. Launch suddenly opened her eyes, enraged and somehow wielding a submachine gun. Can't a girl get a moment's rest? She yelled and fired at Crane. It took a few seconds to empty the clip, but Crane's arms flew into a blur as he caught every single bullet effortlessly. Launch stared him down, still fearless. Gine and Gohan could do feats like this and were unimpressed. But everyone else looked at him slack-jawed in disbelief. Give Master Roshi this message, Crane arrogantly ordered as he dropped the bullets he caught to drive his point home. He can best help his pupils by preparing for their funerals. He then turned and walked away without another word. They all sat there, unsure of what just happened. And I thought Roshi was bad. Bulma broke the silence. Gohan frowned at her. My master may be a bit perverse, but never treated people with disrespect and threats. True that. Turtle spoke up. Gine let go of a breath she didn't realize she was holding in, having forgotten her exercise, and unclenched her fists that she so desperately wanted to drive through Crane's stupid face after mocking them for nothing. Off to a great start, this tournament is. She thought to herself. It took another 2 hours for the preliminaries to be over with, and Kakarot rejoined them along with Krillin, Yamcha, and Chi-Chi. They all breezed through the elimination round with no trouble and are ready for the main event. And it's about time too. After the incident earlier with Crane, Gine wasn't sure how to distract herself with the already overwhelming sensations of being in a strange place with large crowds. She tried her hand at some of the vendor games for a little while with Oolong and Puar, winning lots of, quite frankly, pointless prizes meant for children. But she partook in it anyway to play along with her friends to make them happy and have a good time. But after a while she was getting bored out of her mind with such trivial play, even after seeing Launch shoot up a vendor. At least she was having fun. That's great. I'm impressed, guys. I guess you did learn a thing or two from Master Roshi after all. Bulma said, scarfing down a sugary snack. Gine tried some more of the food and found that the sweets were very delicious indeed, but too much so and couldn't eat them as much as the rest of them did. Krillin looked around. Speaking of Master Roshi, where is he? I haven't seen him since it started. Wherever he is, I'm sure there's trouble, said Turtle. Bulma smirked. It's kind of nice. I need a break from the old man every now and then. I'll tell you what you need. A napkin, said Roshi out of nowhere and surprising everyone. And for your information, I've been hiding amongst the crowds, watching the elimination round. I come here to see my boys fight, not stuff my face with sweets. So, did you like what you saw? Krillin asked his master. From what I witnessed, I'd say all 3 of you. 3. Hey, what about me? Chi-Chi indignantly. Oh my, I'm sorry, all 4 of you have improved a great deal. Roshi said, flustered. I think we have a strong shot of winning this title. Don't worry, Master. We'll win, said Kakarot with such fire in his voice. Then the announcement came. The championship is about to begin. Will all competitors please report to the temple at this time? Bulma and Yamcha exchanged glances and hugged. Good luck out there, baby, she whispered. Yamcha winked. See you, Mom. See you, Grandpa, Kakarot called out as he left for the temple. Good luck, they called back. It's on, guys. Maybe the rest of you can find a good place to catch the action, Krillin said. Oolong looked sly. With Launch here, anything is possible. She's good at making room. Then gestured towards her. Follow me, boys and girls. My friend and I will find you the best seats in the house, Launch declared as she pulled out her pistol. Everyone in sight of her, the gang included, was horrified. All right, people, listen up. I want this path cleared out on the double. Launch barked at the crowd around them and fired her gun in the air as well. Let's go. Move it. Everyone fled as they marched toward the arena. Gine was too embarrassed and kept her head low. Did Launch not know how to be a little less excessive at all? At the arena itself, Gine was astonished by the sheer number of people packed into one place to watch someone fight. Never in her life had she seen so many live bodies at once, not even the entire population of planet Vegeta on its last days where every Saiyan was recalled. Her hyper-tuned Saiyan senses were screaming at her by the vast overlapping sounds and scents of so many varieties of people here. So overwhelmed she was that a wave of panic gripped her. She didn't want to be there, but far away in the mountains back in their cozy little home on Paozu. Right now, she held Gohan's hand even though she was eager to take off and leave the arena. But Gohan noticed how her hands were shaking. Don't worry, my dear. I'm right here. She somehow managed to hear Gohan's voice through the cacophony of sounds bombarding her from all around. Hearing his words helped Gine calm down a little, and she set aside her thoughts of wanting to go home as best she could. She won't run away from this just because she had gotten too used to living in isolation for so long. She was here to cheer her son on, and by the gods that's what she was going to do. Roshi had slipped away quietly from them as everyone gathered by the ring. Gine didn't say anything and pretended not to look as he went off to go change into Jackie Chun. The rest of the gang took notice of his absence and sent Oolong and Puar out to search for Roshi, eventually coming back without him and Oolong battered for looking into the women's bathroom. What if Master Roshi isn't hiding? I wonder if something bad happened to him, Launch asked, back to her peaceful self. Hello, ladies, came that loathsome familiar voice of Crane. Gine immediately forgot her anxiety of being there and looked toward where Crane's voice came from. She saw his crane hat poking above the crowd like a swan on water. Gine would have found it funny if it weren't for the repulsive human being that hat was atop of. I heard you lost a turtle in the crowd. I hope I didn't step on him, he mocked. Bulma glared at him. If that was an attempt at some cleverly veiled threat, you failed miserably. You'd better not have anything to do with this. HMPH. I'm in the dark the same as you, Crane admitted. Oolong crossed his arms, the bruises he sustained for peeking flared up in pain. I'm sick of looking, I'm staying. Crane looked at Oolong in mock pity. Come on, life's too short to be sour. I'll find him for you. Huh. They all looked at him and at each other amazed. But Crane walked off before anybody could say anything. Gine looked at where Crane went and turned to Gohan. What's with that guy? She asked. Gohan shook his head woefully. I have no idea. Master Roshi never mentioned he had a friend like him before. But I guess I can see why he would never talk about him. I bet. With the way he acts, Gine remarked. Then she looked out onto the elevated square slab of white tiles that served as the ring. Hey, look, she pointed. The tournament staff wheeled out the roster for the finalists who were going to fight in the tournament itself. They scanned the lettering from their first row seats and read the fighting order. First match will be Yamcha against someone named Tien Shinhan, then the second match was Pampat against Jackie Chun, the third was Krillin against Xiaosu, and finally the last fight was Kakarot against Chi Chi. Only 3 strangers for our 5 friends to get through. Gohan said as he read the roster. Guess one or more of them will have to fight each other, so this should be interesting. A buzz grew in the air as the last of the spectators came into the arena, with the roster now visible for everyone. They knew the first fight was drawing near. Quite a crowd, Turtle observed. Oolong snorted. Yeah, and Roshi's hiding in it somewhere. Bulma looked confused. It doesn't make any sense for Roshi to hide from us. That's true. Especially when Launch got us such great seats. Puar added. Huh, I did, Launch asked innocently. No one answered, and some even looked nervous. Now this was something Gine was rather curious about. Yeah, you did. Gine spoke up. You fired a gun in the air to scare people out of our way to get here. What? Launch looked shocked. I did that. She looked down at herself, as if unbelieving she could act so tough. I don't understand. How is that even possible? I don't even like guns. Everyone stared at her scared while Gine looked as confused as Launch. Could have fooled me, Oolong said to no one in particular. Gine pressed further. You don't really remember. While you were blonde. Now Launch looked even more confused. While I was blonde. Gine wasn't sure why Launch could not even know her own hair color. Yes, your hair turned blonde, and you had guns on you until you sneezed and returned to your peaceful self. When I sneezed, everyone shrieked in horror. Bulma was trying to motion to Gine to quit asking questions before she accidentally set off Launch to change. Launch looked thoughtful. I guess, that makes sense. I always seem to feel like I've blacked out whenever that happens and end up in bizarre situations. And no one's told you this? Gine asked. Launch's brows furrowed as she thought for a moment, then looked to Gine with sad eyes. No, I don't think so. Gine looked at Launch with a new sense of understanding, and then a new sense of disappointment at how her own friends could take advantage of her like this. Thank you, Launch, Gine said, deciding to end her line of curiosity there and let the poor girl digest that new revelation of herself on her own. Gine glanced at Bulma with a look of disapproval, for she had an idea that Bulma, as sweet and sincere she may be, was not above exploiting others. But Gine kept those thoughts to herself. Bulma avoided Gine's judgmental glare and tried to distract everyone. Oolong, can you do us a favor and go take another look for Roshi? Ah, but the match is just about to start. The pig complained. Don't worry. Crane suddenly spoke up from behind them. Gine whipped around at him, startled. She was starting to get really infuriated by his sudden appearances as much as with his ridiculing. I'm handling it. In fact, I just spoke with the sponsor. He said. What did you do? Bulma asked, unsure. Crane chuckled in reply as an announcement came on the tournament grounds PA system. Attention. A family is asking for help in locating their senile, old as dirt grandfather. Their words, folks, not mine. He is described as being short, fat, and bald. This fits the description for half the audience. Oh, did I say that on mic? Anyway, his family says he closely resembles an ugly turtle. So, if you have any information on his whereabouts, please contact an official. Words failed Gine at this display of public indignation, but Bulma tried. What's with you? That's not even a close description of Master Roshi. He's not our grandfather either. I don't think it's right to call him a turtle like that. Turtle said with some hurt in his voice. Crane feigned innocence, but he was a terrible actor. Don't blame the messenger. I can't help it if all of Roshi's qualities are bad. He's got a point. The old man is creepy. Oolong joked. Oolong. They all glared angrily at him. Before they can argue more, drums began to play. The crowd suddenly grew quiet as the main event was about to begin. Crane slipped away to a spot not far down to their left and didn't leave from there. It must have been his spot to watch the tournament. Gine kept looking at him through the crowd, revulsion running through her at seeing him while the rest of the gang focused entirely on the opening of the tournament itself. Eventually she broke free of staring down Crane and focused on what's in front of her instead. A slick-haired blonde man in a fine suit and sunglasses stepped out onto the ring with a microphone. "Welcome to the show. I'm your host. And are you ready for this?" he asked the crowd. A collective "yeah" resounded throughout the arena. The sudden sharpness of the announcer's voice amplified by the microphone made Gine wince. "All right then. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, the 22nd World Martial Arts Championship." The entire audience went insane as they cheered. Gine's nerves screamed at her too as the noise was physically painful to her Saiyan hearing. Gine placed a hand over one ear to help dampen the sound and focus through the noise and the anxiety flowing through her. So many people in one place making loud noises for just a fight, and she was rather annoyed by the rowdier ones that dotted the crowd nearby and here and there. The announcer continued. "Many of you are looking at me with those adorable, clueless faces and saying, 'Hey, what's this about?' Some of you may already know that we started with 182 competitors who came to vie for the championship title and the prize of 500,000 zeni. But that's ancient history, because the massive horde has been whittled down to 8 finalists who are appearing here today to fight for you. That's right. And I guarantee the fights you're expecting are going to be spectacular. I've been waiting to see this forever," Puar said, excitedly. "Enjoy it while it lasts," Crane said from his spot. "It won't take long for my team to win the title." "Tell me something, Shen, do dream in color?" Bulma asked him dead serious over the announcer. "It's time to lay down the law. Each match will proceed without a time limit and without interruption. The fighter loses only if he or she is thrown out, steps out, or gets knocked out for at least 10 seconds. Sounds simple.